Thank you. And Critical has taken on damage. This is really good juggling that's coming out from the back chats as well. Look at this.
No way. No way Dark remains unspotted in that bush.
Oh my goodness. And he's just going to get the killing blow.
He is indeed going to be reset. Yes, he's probably going to get taken down as well.
This can't be how it works. Wit somehow is still alive. I think they're doing it, Jordan. It all comes down to this.
Oh, Rainbow thinks he's going to get out of there on 185 HP, but Ozzy says, I'm going to find you.
Monkey has arrived. Where's the shot going to go into? Oh, Phantom Sweep Amarak.
Well, hello. It is our first week of playoffs here for ANZPL Season 4. Our new final system as well, gents. Jordan, how you going? It's a big week this week.
I'm very tired, Ben. I'm feeling a bit jet lagged at the moment, so I will apologize in advance for all the dumb things I'm probably going to say on this show.
You should do that every week, let's be real.
I don't normally say dumb things, though.
Okay. Cthulhu, how are you, mate? Big night, of course, and 4 teams left in the competition, and by the end of tonight, one of them will have already secured their spot in the grand finals.
Yeah, one to secure the grand final spot, one to be completely knocked out, and honestly, yeah, I'm quite keen. We went through quite a pretty long, well, I believe first time it was this long of a group stage season, and look, we got to see a whole lot of juicy strats. I'm expecting even juicier stuff to come out now.
Yeah, I think strat saving is over. I don't know how much work these teams have been doing. I suspect quite a lot, because there is a lot on the line. The biggest part of that, of course, is a spot at the grand finals. We are only 3 weeks away from our live finals at Fortress Melbourne, June 25. It's 3 weeks plus 1 day from now, because the finals are on a Saturday, because we know Saturdays are even more fun in person. Tickets are available. We'll be there. I think Elfish Guy will be there probably. Everyone who buys a ticket gets to personally have a handshake with Elfish Guy, but more importantly, every ticket sold, $10 will go proceeds towards fundraising for Game on Cancer. So we'd love to see you there, June 25, the grand finals live from Fortress Melbourne. !finals in chat if you want to find out more. And as you can see, obviously with $10 per ticket going to Game on Cancer, we know that the Wargaming guys are doing a ton of work to help. We have charity streams on the 9th of June. Where both J-Rated and Kev, I think, we're looking to see who gets to color or cut their hair or something wild. There's all sorts of crazy things going on. And then another one with the CCs on the 11th of June as well. So do not miss those. Those are coming up very, very quickly. Lots of great work coming out from the Ouija's and the CCs here as part of the Game on Cancer support. But you can help at home by simply buying a ticket and turning up to the finals June 25 in Fortress Melbourne. And lots to enjoy, gents. It's going to be an absolutely massive weekend. Let's touch on last week, however, and how that one ended up. It was our last week of regular season play. And the results from last round, well, I kind of feel we all kind of felt for the Action X, because, you know, they did what they had to do last week to give themselves a shot. The Scorps took down the Conks. They absolutely decimated the Bulldogs, and the Sentinels took down the Panthers. But Jordan, a little bit too little too late.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was one of those situations where a lot of things had to go right for a couple of those teams, and a lot of things didn't quite end up going right for them. Adelaide Action X, you know, I felt a little bit bad for them. It sort of felt like they did everything that they could, really, but you know, it just didn't sort of pan out the way that they wanted it to. So I guess it's a situation now where they have to look toward next season, and hopefully they're going to come back a little bit stronger. I mean, the same kind of thing has to be said for Brisbane Bulldogs. They were kind of making a bit of a run-in toward the end of the season, and again, they just didn't quite get it over the line. And you know, someone has to come in the 5th and 6th places, and unfortunately, it was those two teams.
Certainly was, and we'll see what they do and how that plays out for promos and relegations. But we can go and take a look at the team standings. Cthulhu, when we started this season, and you had an idea in your mind of what the top four would look like, was this the top four that you had planned out for the end of season 4?
I was expecting a slightly different shuffle, but generally speaking, yeah, the top 4 was relatively expected, at least on my end, that it would be Kongs, Panthers, Sentinels, and Scorpions to come through, albeit the initial kind of idea of what Panthers would do and has been a little bit garbled all over the place at the beginning of the season, but they managed to bring it back pretty well, apart from their unfortunate turnout last week that nearly ended up costing them even the spot in the playoffs. Yeah, they did a pretty solid job the second half of that season. So on the other hand, the Conquerors had a bit of a downfall, which kind of felt a little bit weird, because to me, when I was doing all the research prior to the beginning of the season, Conquerors looked like the team that could be the dominant one, but Scorpions turned out quite well.
Yeah, they did. The Scorpions looking pretty good, and we'll see whether they can continue that form or not into finals. Now, speaking of players in form, we've got our All-Stars at the end of the regular season, and oh my goodness, Merry Turnip Day, who had been leading the entire time, now overtaken here by Russian Jordan, who has played 4 or 5 less battles than everyone else on the player leaderboard for the All-Stars, but somehow Russian comes out on top.
To be fair, it did feel like it was going to be a matter of time if we went through every single week and we saw Russian continuing to keep that average fantasy points total quite high. The deeper we got into the season, it ended up becoming a bit of an inevitability that he would end up catching everyone, assuming everyone continued to play the same amount of games, just because he's putting more points on the board. And he was only sitting in second for such a long time because he had played less games total. So yeah, credit to him. He's been a fantastic player. And I think this is actually going to be the back-to-back for Russian. I don't recall who it was last season, whether it was Bales or Russian that ended up at the top. But it was certainly one of those two. And obviously Russian top 2 for 2 seasons in a row. Incredible consistency. Very, very, very well done.
Yeah, not bad at all. And more than 10% more average fantasy points than everyone else on that leaderboard. So that's a pretty impressive result. We'll see what he can do for the rest of finals. And yeah, finals is where we're at. First week of playoffs. This week's match is going to be absolutely lit. We have our new format, which means these games are going to be bonkers. The first one of the night, the South Sydney Scorpions up against the North Sydney Sentinels. There was seed 1 and 2 coming in to the finals. And then following that, the Perth Panthers v the Christchurch Conquerors. Now, Jordan, these two teams playing for a little bit different. It's a little bit different for each of them. They have a different scenario for making their way through to finals. The Scorps and the Sentinels, they're in the upper bracket final. You win tonight, you're in the grand final, you're done. The lower bracket final is the Panthers and the Conks. That's seed 3 and 4. Now, they're playing to keep in it. If they lose, they're out. If they win, they have to go up against the loser of that upper bracket final. So a lot of work to be done to sort of grind your way from that 3rd, 4th spot.
I like the way that this ends up playing out. Obviously it makes every single game in the playoffs bracket feel important. There's a lot more to talk about during the regular season when it comes to seeding, particularly for those, first couple of spots. No longer is it, first place 4th, second place 3rd, blah, blah, blah. It's now actually, if you're up in the top end of the regular season, you've got essentially an extra life to play with. In your route to the grand final. And for the Panthers and for the Conquerors, they do get, in a sense, punished a little bit for not being able to finish the season in the top 2 placements. Particularly, maybe you could say in the case of the Conquerors, who started so well, they'd be looking at Scorpions and Sentinels and feeling like maybe that was a position that they could have held down. Not really the case this time around, but still a very viable route to that grand final.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, Cthulhu, the thing that I love, apart from that we reward the top 2 teams, is that the games should be that much closer, because instead of having 1v4 and 2v3, you've now got 1v2 and 3v4. So these games, these teams theoretically based on season standings should be a little bit closer in skill, and they should be some really close games. And maybe we get to see the Scorps and the Sentinels go head-to-head twice in the final series.
Absolutely. I mean, look, in terms of even the Panthers versus Conquerors, this is, I believe, the match that we got to see at the beginning of the season, and I believe it was right at the start of the second half of the season of the group stage as well. So this is almost well, historic here for Perth Panthers and Conquerors, and absolutely the Sydney Derby as well to be repeated, but on a larger scale. I'm absolutely down for it.
Yeah, I'm super keen. Look, I think this is going to be great. I think it's going to be absolutely lit. But let's take a look at the predictions. Sandman out on top of the casters. The Ouija's look ahead of me. But I've gone Scorps and Conks. Jordan's gone Scorps and Conks. You've gone Sentinels and Conquerors, which I think, to be fair, Cthulhu is the fair play, but we'll see. I think both of these games going to be pretty good. All right. We can crack on. I think we can chat about our first match of the night, because this one's going to be an absolute ripper. It's the Scorpions v the Sentinels. Jordan, I know you love the Scorps. JT, we give them a hard time, but this team has really come into form across the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a particularly pertinent point, that obviously for Scorpions, they've always been one of the top teams in the region, but the question has been their form, and at the moment it kind of seems like their form is actually coming together at the right time. And if we take out those 2 losses against the Bulldogs, who for some reason seem to be the Scorpions' kryptonite, there is only the 1 loss to the Sentinels there, and it's a phenomenal looking record actually. As far as the regular season is concerned, and also it's a nice little storyline. The fact that they have lost once to the Sentinels, they have beaten the Sentinels once, and now they have to face them in the playoffs for a spot at the grand final, and there's a very good chance that they might face them in that grand final as well. It's a real good rivalry that we do see building and have seen built over the course of however many seasons these 2 teams have been playing against one another. I think it's fantastic the way that this bracket has actually worked out.
Yeah, I think for me, this is kind of the expectation that these might be the top 2 teams. And I'm keen to know that we're not, quite often soft in the past. We've seen them together in the semis or whatnot, and we never got these 2 teams going head-to-head in the final. I think that probably this is what we're going to see. We're going to see a repeat of today, 3 weeks from now, live at Fortress. But, you got to turn up. There's only a couple of games left, obviously, in this playoffs bracket. And if you don't turn up tonight and your opponent turns up in a week's time, that's it. You're done. It doesn't matter how well you did for the rest of the season. But I can't help but feel that these 2 teams are going to be pretty close. I don't know, Cthulhu, maybe one of them, maybe, your predictions for this Sentinels team is going to be correct, and they're absolutely just going to destroy the Scorps tonight.
Well, I mean, we've seen in the first half of the season where they were able to just pull an absolute solid win, albeit both of the matchups, so whether it was the Scorpions win or the Sentinels win, it was off the back of the tiebreaker. So both of the regular season matchups have gone full way, and Sentinels, look, they still looked on point. They still have, the whole star power of Rainbow, the Mr. Big Brains himself. There's Wymo still being, the Return still being a very consistent performer. So overall, it's still a really solid team, and at its core value, they are considered one of the better teams out there with an NZPL. So personally for me, well, plus off the back of their map picks as well that we will get to shortly as well, they might have just a slightly better chance, just at least statistically.
What do you think of that road to finals that we see? There are a few losses in a row there as well. A good win over the Panthers at the end. But, when you compare that perhaps to the form that we have seen from the Scorpions, you may have to wonder, is this Sentinels lineup in form tonight?
Yeah, I think it might be. I think it might be the one they certainly have been seen putting in the effort and the and the numbers in. And I think the most recent win against Panthers should be a pretty decent indication, given the fact that Panthers, as of recently, have been on quite a decent rise as well. So, quite keen to see what Sentinels will be able to bring over in their full form.
So am I, and this is the last piece of the puzzle, of course. We have our maps. Tonight is a best of 7. The finals are all best of 7s, not best of 5s, which means we get to ban out some maps. A little bit of a different process to normal. Mines is gone, Ghost Town gone, Marabunka gone, Tundra gone, the Sense Pick Cliff Himmelsdorf for the Scorpions. Then if we continue, it's Proc or Robka will play 2 battles there. And if we're tied after 6 battles, we will go to Sand, River, Jordan. That could be the tiebreaker. That's a rough one to attack on for sure. So if we go all the way to the tiebreaker tonight, you definitely want to be doing it with that advantage of the fastest attacking side or the most damage on the attacking side, because I certainly wouldn't want to have to attack in a tiebreaker on Sand River to come out on top. So this is going to be a big one. I'm flagging this as our prelude to the grand final, and I think it's going to be pretty close, but we'll have to wait and see. Jordan, is this going to a tiebreaker tonight?
Ooh, that's a tough question to answer, Ben. I want to say no. I feel like Scorpions did look pretty damn good in the last matchup these teams played, so I'll be giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I am a little bit surprised with the way that the veto did play out. Scorpions banning out a couple of maps that I thought that they might like to head towards, in the Ghost Town, for example, that they beat the Sentinels 2-0 on in their first matchup. And also picking into Himmelsdorf, which has, historically been a really good map for the Sentinels. So not a lot of time to talk about that, but I think there's been some interesting veto decisions made by the Scorpions. I'm sure they've tried to change things up, and that's an interesting decision from Napalmer as well. I'm not sure what he's done that for, but hopefully there's a reason why he's chosen to drive his tank upside down.
What happened there with Napalm is beyond me, but yeah, look, I was just about to cite, the win rates on all of those maps for Scorpions. It's either 50 or below, and that's not a good start.
Is it too late to change my prediction for Sentinels?
See, I booked in my predictions at days ahead. And
I don't think Scorpions can win from here. I mean, JT, he was out in the middle of no man's land. He was trying to push Napalmer over. And obviously he got pretty farmed. The Sentinels, they're going to be laughing. I mean, what can you really do in that kind of a situation as the Scorpions? I think you kind of have to look at that and say, there's not much we could do about this game. You cannot let this one tilt you. You just have to, you can only laugh, right, in a game like this. So hopefully that's something that Scorpions can just brush off. There is at least a benefit in the sense that this is a bit of a longer series, Cthulhu. It's not, I guess, as punishing to lose one round. But definitely not a good early sign.
Yeah, that's a bit of a problematic one, and maybe possibly a slight tilter. But yeah, look, not the brightest start. But I mean, we've seen the similar thing happen when it was Conquerors versus Scorpions, where the initial round again was looking pretty good. It was Scorpions that did a bit of an oopsie there and ended up falling through in the first round. But then they all pulled a huge comeback. So, assuming it's not all over, obviously, and look, first round for Sentinels at least will give them a good momentum.
Yeah, well. Probably not the start that the Scorpions were looking for, but the Sentinels will very happily take that one. It's kind of the equivalent of kicking off the NRL Grand Final and putting the ball out on the full off the first kick of the night. Certainly less than ideal, but as you said, Jordan, plenty of time. It's a best of 7, and this was I think the map pick for the Sentinels as well, right? So Cliff came from them, if I recall correctly. So don't want to put too much out there too early.
Yeah, just got to say, hopefully no one picked Napalmer in their fantasy team, because it certainly wouldn't have been a good start to the occasion. JT, what did he get? A bunch of HP damage for his allies, and I guess that might have come from trying to bump Napalmer back over. But yeah, end of the day, I don't think that there's really too much to break down from that game. Like, that's literally just lost from the outset for the Scorpions. There's pretty much nothing they can do. I mean, even in a 4-on-5, it's tough, but when it's basically a 3-on-5 because JT's trying to knock Napalmer back onto his tracks, it's just like, yeah. I mean, you just have to say, in your comms or whatever, don't even think about it. Like, that game literally did not exist. We start with a handicap. We start down 0-1 in this series, and we just have to go from there. Because I think if you let that one get to you, if you overthink it, if someone starts getting mad at Napalmer, or Napalmer starts to get in his own head and thinks, hey, I've screwed up, I've really started to throw our chances of making the grand final, that's where the tilt sets in, and that's where you can go on that bit of a spiral. And you obviously want to be avoiding that in every possibility. So hopefully, again, that we're going to be seeing some strong mental fortitude from the Scorpions. And based on the discussions we've had with them in the interviews, I think they are the kind of team that's probably just going to go, you know what, that sucks, but let's have a laugh about it and hopefully just move on.
I think there's very little else you can do, right, Cthulhu? You have to be able to laugh about something like this and just take it as it is and move on to the next game.
Yeah, well, yeah, that would be basically kind of the idea behind it all. I mean, there was like a slight bit of disappointment on the Scorpions' faces during the webcams that we got to see them on. But yeah, ideally it's just, yeah, well, you know, laugh it off. There's still at least a map and a half to really play out. So there's still plenty of possibilities and opportunities to really bring it all back. And we know that Scorpions have very much the ability to bring those scorelines back in a really prompt way.
What I will say is it will actually be interesting to sort of see how this plays out from the perspective of Scorpions playing from behind. Actually, in both of the matchups we've seen this season, Scorpions have actually gotten off to a 2-0 lead. So, you know, what kind of dynamic does that change if they're going to have to now be the team that's chasing and you know, playing from behind?
Well, maybe this helps them, right, Cthulhu?
Perhaps,
because maybe this is the scenario where finally they can't get reverse swept because they were losing at the start. I kind of feel like Mines was the map where the reverse sweep either started or ended back a couple of seasons ago, and things did not go the Scorpions' way. But we'll get back into the action. Here we go once again on Cliff, and we know now the Sentinels 1-0 ahead. The Scorpions here on attack. The Sentinels, Jordan, gonna have a shot on defense. Hopefully for them, a little bit better than what the Scorpions did.
Yeah, you'd definitely be hoping so.
Do you do like in the soccer, right, where if someone gets injured or accidentally kicks the ball out, you kick the ball out too? Maybe the Sentinels just flip
fair
the tank.
play.
Yeah, fair play.
Returned has to flip his CS63 to make it even. To be in the same spot. Oh no, it's Rainbow there. Never mind.
Okay.
But either way, not going to happen. And it's a full hill climb by the looks of it from the CS63s of the Scorpions. They've spotted out Rainbow. No shots to come through
Here he is.
too early on in the piece, but Aussie eats one. Napalmer did miss his shot onto Rainbow. Returned has also taken some nice map control and can perhaps get some cross shots in onto JT and Russian, but he'll need to be careful with his positioning as well. So early exchanges look to be relatively even. A shot apiece on a couple of tanks, but not much beyond that. Wymo now, though, in the Kranwagen, starting to get a bit of that hill control in mid and start to cause some problems for the heavy tanks.
Yeah, that's a proper amount of damage there, really. JT is not particularly having fun. Neither is Russian, really. With the beauty of Kranwagen as well, on that position, you basically only show your turret. So good luck to both Russian and JT to try to pin that bad boy. On the other hand, Sentinels actually set up a phenomenal crossfire. I mean, the moment they try to back out of middle... Yeah, the moment they back out of middle, they get shot by the return. The moment they try to push, it's a crossfire between double Cran and Rainbow's CS63. And it seems like the call has been made to actually go for the full overpush to try to bully Wymo out of that position. But Cindy, I'm assuming, is also on a clip, but just about to come off it. So the moment Russian is clipping, this is where Cindy needs to perform.
I mean, this is a horrible fight for Scorpions to be taking. Double Kranwagen in mid are able to just completely bully everyone in the center of the map. Great crossfires were established by the Sentinels as well, and I mean, you've got Aussie in a relatively healthy CS63. He went for a bit of a wrap around toward the 2 flag, but he's kind of a non-factor at this point. It was this almost looked like a counter-strat from the Sentinels in the sense that they just had the perfect tanks in the perfect positions, and there was literally nothing that the Scorpions could do. Once those 2 Kranwagens were set up and once Scorpions were committed to mid, they were just going to get far. So, very unfortunate start to the series here already for the Scorpions. Sentinels off to a 2-0 banger. And now we're going to have to really see what the Scorpions are made of.
Yeah, the Sentinels off to an absolute cracking start. And you can kind of see it on Napa's face there. He's not feeling it right now. And, yeah, kind of got a feel for the Scorpions. That Battle 1 didn't really help them at all. Battle 2, Jordan, only got themselves to blame there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to an extent, obviously, you know, you come into every given game with a bit of an idea or a strategy and the way that you want to play the game out. And you could definitely see what the Scorpions were trying to do there, but basically from the outset, it just seemed as though either Sentinels had a good sort of early round call or a good default setup, or they just had a great read. Whatever the case was, Sentinels had their tanks in near perfect positions to deal with what the Scorpions were able to do. And it wasn't even a case of, yeah, Scorpions made a bad call or they made a bad rotate or whatever. It was that just those initial setups made the game almost impossible to play for them. So everything has gone perfectly tonight for Sentinels. Literally everything they've touched has turned to gold, and Sentinels cannot seem to get into this series at all. I would not be surprised if you were to ask the Scorpions right now, have they felt like they've played 2 maps of World of Tanks? I don't think they would say yes. They haven't really had the opportunity to play the game so far. That's just how one-sided these games have been, and I think that's going to be something that's quite tough to come back from mentally.
Yeah, it's certainly not a great place to be in at all, and even in these best of 7 series, Cthulhu, we're 2 maps away, or 2 battles, one map pick away from a 4-0, and the Sentinels being through to finals by 7:55 p.m. on the Friday night after a 7:30 game 1 start. Like, this isn't a great spot at all for the Scorpions to be in. And the other big part for me here is that the next map is Himmelsdorf, and that's a map where the Sentinels have a better win rate than the Scorpions do. I don't think the Sentinels have lost a game maybe on defense of Himmelsdorf at all this season.
I mean, yeah, look, we're looking at the hard stats. For Scorpions, 6 battles were played on Himmelsdorf, and only 33.33% of those have been won for themselves. Whereas you look at the Himmelsdorf of Sentinels, it's been 12 battles, 75% win rate. And it has been an absolute stomping round. Full 100% win rate, by the way, for them on the defense for Sentinels. And you look at Scorpions, it's been just, yeah, all over the place. 33s on every side. So out of 3 battles on each one of the sides, it's been only 1 win for them. So,
yeah,
bit of a yikes right now for Scorpions, looking at their whole positioning.
It is their pick, though.
Yeah, it is their pick, yeah.
It is, but I guess, like, for me, the context, when you know Mines is gone, Ghost Town, Muravanka Tundra's gone, right? And you've got, what, 4 maps left? I don't know, like, what is the reasoning for wanting Himmelsdorf as your pick, I suppose? Because it's certainly not the best of their maps, and, like, okay, I think everyone knew that they were never going to get to play Mines, right? So, like, that's not really a consideration here. But Himmelsdorf, I'm hoping for Scorpions fans that JT has something up his sleeve, because right now, based on the stats, based on the season that we have seen, it is very possible that we're 10 minutes away from wrapping this one up and the Sentinels locking their slot through to Melbourne.
Yeah, most definitely. I think for me, the main thing that you have to take into account here is that Scorpions is a team that is likely to put a lot of prac in, and they are the kind of team that I think thinks about the veto a lot, and they would have known that Sentinels was going to be trying to get Himmelsdorf into the pool in some way, shape, or form. So maybe you just try to get ahead of that and you put in the work on this map and you say, look, we're going to take it to you. We know this is a map that's going to come out in this series, so we're going to put in a lot of effort to get our Himmelsdorf up to scratch. And this is now the time where we get to find out whether or not that's been the case. Bit of an exchange of damage early on in the piece. 1 or 2 shots going into Napalmer and some responding in onto Cindy as well. He's going to tuck himself in the corner here, but that looks like a very isolated position at the moment. I know there can be some cross shots from the train lines, Cthulhu, but Napalmer, 1900 HP. He feels like he could be a tank that gets picked off early here if Scorpions have not got the setup to assist him.
Yeah, look, at the moment it is a bit of an eyebrow raise from me, honestly, for Napalmer's position, albeit it does serve as a good cutoff spot, so Cindy can't actually, back away from any sort of fight on G-line without bleeding any more damage. So between Napa and JT, well, at least one of the IS4s technically is locked in, but apart from that, I don't think it really serves a whole lot of purpose, that very position.
It's a position that's really good for spotting the banana line push, and it's obviously still a fairly expensive one to dig out because you do have to commit the tanks into the courtyard, in which case You know, the E100 is going to pretty much immediately have shots. The E100 at D2 I'm talking about, and then hopefully the 50B and the other IS4 can sort of get into that fight relatively quickly as well to assist. It's kind of a case of, yeah, we know we're going to lose our IS4. We know we're going to lose Napalmer, but how much damage can we deal in response? Rainbow needs to be a little careful that he does not do something similar to what Napalmer did in game number 1. Returned, able to sneak a shot through onto Aussie. I feel like it's a pretty disgusting shot. I don't know, at that range and moving at full speed, if you would expect to pen that every single time. But he's got it done, and Napalmer kind of looks up the creek without a paddle. He's gone around the corner, and I don't know that he knew whether or not those E100s were there. This is looking awful for the Scorpions. JT is going to try and salvage it with some damage in onto Cindy. And of course, the E100 of Knight is going to try and assist with some damage onto Wymo. But end of the day, Scorpions are falling to bits.
Yeah, Scorpions just once again not really particularly feeling too healthy right now on their play. Whilst yes, JT was able to sink quite a fair few shots into Cindy, that did not particularly help. Napal's push just didn't particularly help either here. The battle between the two E100 and the IS4 and S-Kong could be actually very much workable here for Scorpions, but in reality here, JT is not for long in this world, I'll say that.
Yeah, he's a dead man. Hopefully for the Scorpions, Russian is going to be coming off the reload shortly, and it looks like that's going to be the case. So he might be able to dump a clip into Dell and then scurry off. But even in the meanwhile, you can see Knight and Aussie are struggling in their engagement as well against the IS4 and the Super Conqueror. So a 3-on-5. I mean, even on the defense here for Scorpions, I don't see them winning this one. It just doesn't feel like it's going to be Scorpions' day today. For some reason, coming into this game in particular, maybe it is because of the way that this started. It's not looking like the same Scorpions that we saw in that matchup against Sentinels last time, right? That was a really well-drilled Scorpions. It was a dominant Scorpions. It was a confident Scorpions. And you're just not getting the same sense. It feels like the timing is off. In a lot of cases, they're bleeding a lot of early damage, and Sentinels just always have that trump card or the ace up their sleeves, which Scorpions is not expecting. So they're just not reading the game super well at the moment, it seems like. And Sentinels are running away with this victory. It's going to be a 4-0 the way things are going.
I don't call it just yet, because Russian is about to go in and attempt to clip Rainbow as well, and that double swing between himself and Aussie could be rather disgusting as Russian starts to
Dodge
clip.
the shot of return. But look, there's still a couple of tanks coming around the corner here that are going to prevent him from really committing to that fight.
True. I mean, still, and now he only has 2 rounds in the clip, unless he decides to reload, which he actually does. So backs away, so now it's only a singular E100 of Aussie to try to do anything, and the return is actually doing a pretty good job at just halting Knight in every shape and possibility. So right now, yeah, 3 gunfights completely isolated, albeit Russian could be able to shut down quite a fair few pushes if he decides to focus on the E100 and the IS4 that is currently pushing Aussie.
I think Aussie's probably not going to have a very fun time of it, to be honest, in a 1 or 2. I mean, yeah, there's some low HP tanks on the other side of that engagement, and he is in an E100, so if he can angle his tank well, if he can pen his shots, maybe he can get some good damage down, but ultimately, it is just a little bit too much to handle. Knight is also down to a 1-shot. Got Russian running away in the 50B. He's on the reload. 2 minutes left on the clock. I'm not sure that it's going to come down to that, especially when there's only 30 seconds left here for the cap. Someone's going to need to get a reload, and I guess it's going to have to be Russian, but what are you going to do?
Yeah. I mean,
I reckon you just preserve your life here. You know, like what is the point of even trying to get a reset here?
I mean, not even for the reset. I would assume just try to maybe farm up the last bits of damage. But yeah, at this point, no chance at all. No shot. A flawless round from Sentinels, which is something that we're not usually accustomed to see in general. But Sentinels firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, the Sentinels looking very good tonight. Really on form. Though it doesn't feel to me maybe like the Scorpions. This isn't the Scorpions that we perhaps expected to see. If I had to guess, is this the Sentinels playing amazingly better than they have all season, or is the Scorpions really struggling when it matters? And I kind of lean, Jordan, on it being more that the Scorpions are struggling. But to be fair, the Sentinels aren't giving them any ground at all. They're not making those mistakes. They're playing very well tonight and absolutely punishing the Scorpions lineup, who just doesn't seem ready to play.
Yeah, look, I mean, I think you have to give credit to the Sentinels and say they're playing a good game here, but I don't think they're doing anything, extraordinary or particularly out of the box.
They haven't needed to, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Game 1, they get a free win because Nappa flips his tank. Game 2, they get a free win because Scorpions set up in a pretty awkward spot into double Crown Bargain that's able to just peek over the hill and farm them. Game 3, well, we just saw how that one played out where, again, it just felt like the Scorpions' initial setup was kind of countered by the way that the Sentinels wanted to play that map out. Napalm got pretty farmed in that corner, and there wasn't really anything the Scorpions could do about it. This is all pretty standard stuff from the Sentinels. Like, they're not running weird compositions or putting tanks in weird spots or finding weird timings or playing overly aggressive. Kind of feels like they're just playing their defaults, and Scorpions is driving into them and getting farmed. And so I kind of agree with your point in that it's not necessarily that Sentinels is playing amazingly, not to say that they're playing poorly, of course, but
yeah, we don't want to take anything away from what they're doing, but this doesn't look like the Sentinels v Scorpions game that we probably expected to see. Irrespective,
this doesn't look like Scorpions has showed up to this event, to this day in particular. That's the main takeaway for me. So they're one round away from losing this series, Ben, and having to go down into that lower bracket match. And I mean, hopefully that's going to light the fire under them because they need it.
Yeah, maybe it will help them with their road to finals. We'll have to wait and see. But for the Scorpions, this is kind of where it all sort of started to fall apart in this game, Cthulhu.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of an unfortunate kind of turnout because the initial setup, I mean, as described even by Elfish as well, had everything set up pretty well for Scorpions. They were just basically waiting for Sentinels to push. But I think what did unfortunately start kind of the unfortunate downfall for the defense there for them was the fact that Napar decided to push out by himself and just ended up getting farmed up by the E100s and by basically everyone else in the Sentinels team. So meanwhile, there was also already the hill push already all starting up. So there's while Scorpions were contemplating just only on one front, Sentinels were already expanding their thoughts and prayers and hopes and game into the second front already.
Yeah, well, the Sentinels certainly seem to have their number here, and now they find themselves on match point, one battle away from locking in a grand final slot at Fortress Melbourne on June 25. And Jordan, they're going to be doing it on the defensive side of Himmelsdorf, where they are currently 6 wins from 6 battles, 100%. Ooh. So, if the Scorpions want to change things up and finally get their own reverse sweep, they have to do it in the most incredible of fashions and start it here against the defensive side of Himmelsdorf.
That is a bit of a statistic. Look, to be fair, Scorpions, they did have a 100% win rate on Mines, and they lost it to Bulldogs, the team at the bottom of the league. So who's to say that the first place team in the regular season cannot take a win off of the Sentinels here on the attacking side of Himmelsdorf? It is very much possible, but the way that Scorpions have been playing so far today, I would not be holding my breath. JT gets the early info as to Rainbow's positioning, but that shot will not connect, courtesy of Napalm. So no advantage just yet for the Scorpions, and we might be getting a relatively slow game out of this one in terms of the compositions.
I am, though, rating the idea here by Scorpions to try to bunch up the E100s, maybe try to push with a 1-1-3, and try that early collapse against Rainbow and maybe Wymo as well, but the issue there would be the fact that, well, Returned is pretty much ready, locked and loaded to play for that Crossfire, plus Dell, and there's also an IS-4 that has, I believe, been, well, it's yet to be spotted on the one line as well, on the railroad track, so there's a number of very sketchy moments and positions that Scorpions yet to find, yet to read into. So yeah, you look at the fact that only one tank has been really spotted at the moment. Yeah, look, there may be some problems later down the line, I reckon.
This might as well be a wet noodle fight between JT and Rainbow. You're going to be lucky to get a pen through in this kind of exchange. Just keeping one another busy.
Yeah.
Having a fun game of World of Tanks.
It's all about that, Jordan.
I will say, now that we've got that 0-3 scoreline for the Scorpions, I think it's quite prudent to bring up the fact that Scorpions have historically struggled a lot in semi-finals. A lot of the time we've gone into the playoffs and we've sort of had this air of maybe Scorpions being a favorite, at least in their semi-final match. Certainly in at least a couple of the seasons. In some cases, maybe not so much earlier on in like maybe seasons 1 or 2, but definitely in the latter couple of seasons, they've come in looking like a reasonable prospect. And I don't believe they've ever made it through. Well, I know they've never made it through to the grand final, so they've never won a semi-final. Obviously, the format has changed up a little bit this season. That means that if they do lose this semi-final, they can still make it through that lower bracket and make it into the grand final. But it's not a particularly enjoyable statistic or situation to find yourself in as the Scorpions. If that's something that continues to crop up, which it has, there must be some sort of mental block or something like that.
Interesting to me that Nate Palmer decides to pick the inside of the park as his position for the engagement, as he just gets lit up. This does provide.
This is exactly why.
Yeah, this is exactly why. Yeah, it provides a really good farm position onto Wymo, which forces him to fall back with, sub 1,000
He needs to be
HP.
careful though.
But yeah, that swing from the S-Comp is going to be a problem. Just finally
maybe,
get spotted.
Maybe JT and the 113 might be able to help him out, but we'll have to see how it does end up panning on out now as the real exchange does start to eventuate. JT is currently getting pushed by Rainbow in the IS4. Will actually not take any damage from that shot, so Rainbow will be a bit disappointed by that one. It looked to be a relatively well-aimed one into the track, and I think it did track JT, but did no damage at all. Even still, HP numbers are looking relatively even. The only concern for me now is that Wymo is starting to get relatively low on HP. The same can be said for Napalmer and maybe JT as well. Whoever loses the first tank in this engagement, or the first couple of tanks if they're untraded, is going to ultimately lose the battle. Guns in the game, very, very important. Speaking of which, JT's gun going to be firing a little bit slower. He's got a damaged ammo rack. It's not going to help in this war of attrition.
Yeah, but with Aussie putting in, this is going to be the one to try to shut down Rainbow as well. With Wymo being unable to keep on re-swinging, this would be kind of big, given that Rainbow is basically now, his position is expendable. But this provides a huge opportunity for Wymo to farm up the damage. Knight is no longer looking at him. The back is exposed. And finally, well, Rainbow just has to keep himself alive for as long as possible. Unfortunately, that's not the case. But already, Dell, we already have, I believe, Wymo as well, just getting to that kind of 3k damage point. So right now, Dell needs to stay alive as much as he can and allow Cindy to farm up Russian.
Wymo's having a really good game here, and it's just not looking like it's coming together at all for the Scorpions, is it? 2 players left alive. They found themselves in a massive crossfire. As soon as Russian starts to run away from Cindy, he gets an extra angle in there. Wymo was already a second ancillary angle, and that is going to be Sentinels absolutely crushing the Scorpions tonight. A 4-0. And I have no words for how dominant that series was.
Yeah, I think dominant is the word, right? Count up the number of tanks that the Sentinels lost across all of those matches, and I'm still not sure you get to 5. It was extremely one-sided, and congratulations to the Sentinels, who are the first team through to our ANZPL Season 4 Grand Final live from Fortress Melbourne. They looked fantastic tonight. They did not allow the Scorpions any sort of wiggle room to get back in Cthulhu, and I think that's the point for me. You can say, well, things didn't go well for the Scorpions. Things didn't go their way. They flipped a tank. They had the wrong setup. They played on Himmelsdorf, XYZ, whatever it may be. But so often those things happen, and then teams let them back in. And the Sentinels tonight were having absolutely none of that.
Oh yeah, it was an absolutely phenomenal performance by Sentinels. They knew exactly, basically what the Scorpions were intending to do. And for Scorpions, yeah, look, unfortunately, on a number of occasions, they just kind of decided to dedicate to kind of the idea of just full sending it and no backup plan, which ended up backfiring. That was the round 2 of Cliff. That was the second round of Himmelsdorf, and unfortunately, well, such as the reality of it. Well, for Scorpions, at least they get a second chance, like you guys mentioned before. But at least you know what, I'm the one thing that I'm sad that we didn't get to see Sand River from Scorpions, because funnily enough, they have not played a single Sand River throughout the whole of group stage as well, which would have been cool to see in the playoffs.
That would have been cool to see. Let's be real, we saw very little from the Scorpions tonight, Jordan. It's like there's almost nothing I can take away from this other than they probably shouldn't let Himmelsdorf through if they get to play it again in the grand final, if they get that far.
I mean, it's not even letting Himmelsdorf through, Ben. They've picked Himmelsdorf. So, again, I don't know. I agree with you. I don't think there's much you can really take away from this one for the Scorpions.
I'm
this was not the Scorpions.
What's the takeaway? Not much.
What is there? Yeah,
don't
exactly.
Lose like this again in person if you get that far.
The difficulty is you look at the map pool and you say, well, they can't let Himmelsdorf through. They can't let Cliff through. They obviously don't want to let Ghost Town through either.
Yep.
So where do you go there for Scorpions? They've been really good on mines this season, but that's going to be the insta-ban every single time from Sentinels. So the map pool is looking pretty dry at the moment for the Scorpions in this particular matchup, which is going to obviously make their life difficult if they do make it through to final. But
honestly,
it's going to take a lot of work to get there, and hopefully they've got the ability to sort of bounce back off of this one, because that was not a great showing.
No, it wasn't. And as you say, where can they go at the moment? If I'm the Scorpions, I'm tempted to go to chat, type _finals in there and go and buy myself a ticket, because right now I'm not confident that they're going to make it through to Fortress. That was a wild ride. I guess Cthulhu, look, if the two things that you can take away from it, people's going to say, Sandman, Scorpions fan, he finally found a way for them to lose in semis and still make it through to the finals, potentially, with this finals format that I love so much. And secondly, that really, if these two teams do by chance get to see each other one more time this season in the grand final, there's almost nothing really that either team can probably take away from this game. Maybe the Scorpions can look at some of the Sentinel strats and say, well, you know, they intended to play this way. We were forced to play a way that didn't really suit us. Maybe there's something to learn there. But really, I think, that would be really scratching for something that's probably not there. So what a vastly different result from when these two teams went head-to-head only a few weeks ago, and the Scorpions went 3-1 over the Sentinels.
Yeah, look, it definitely feels rather weird to see the scoreline between the two Sydney teams to end up the way how it did. And 4-0 certainly is quite a surprise even to myself, given though I did predict Sentinels to come out victorious over this. But honestly, yeah, look, it kind of ends up bleeding into both kind of the issues with their map bans that I think just went completely sideways for them, plus the fact that I think the early tilt kind of played in there with the fact that Napalm turned over. They basically lost for free that first round. And kind of from there on, they tried to play basically Cliff as in a similar way how they do mines on like a few occasions, where they just dedicate full send just one position on middle and just kind of play it there. Albeit I'm sure that JT will roast me for that saying, but honestly, yeah, look, it's just been a little bit just all over the place for them, and I think going into the next matchup is just first of all, try to nail your map bans and picks, and later down the line, just look into playing for that a little bit more of an expanded play and just play, well, reactively rather than yourself trying to essentially force some sort of an engagement.
Yeah, you look at this and you say, well, you know, maybe it kind of was like a reverse sweep. The only problem is that the Scorpions forgot to win the first 3 battles first before they activated Let's Lose in reverse sweep mode, Jordan.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think for me, maybe this is the best storyline, right? Maybe this is exactly what we want. We've got Sentinels now in the grand final. Not that they're defending their title per se, but it sort of feels like they are, because they are the team that has won the most seasons of ANZPL. And now, you know, if Scorpions does make it through that lower bracket, it makes for all the more enticing of grand finals.
Yeah, it's a possibility. I'm not sure at the moment. I'm genuinely not sure if that Scorpions lineup is capable. Let's be real. We know they are capable, but they've only got one more chance. A man who doesn't need any more chances for finals, though, is Wymo, the real man himself. Look at that mustache on the broadcast. Every game, Wymo, we would cut to player cams at the end of the match, and you would look ecstatic. Congratulations, Sentinels through to the Season 4 Grand Finals. You guys absolutely smashed them out of the park tonight. How'd it feel?
Oh, man. Yeah, felt good. We thought, finals, we got to go into it training a lot, whatnot. But JT didn't have as many tricks in the book that we thought he might have. He might be saving them for Grand Final. But if we see him there, I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big if at the moment. Based on that game in particular, which was a very dominant win, I'd have to say, I think that was probably the most one-sided match we've had this season, and perhaps one of the most one-sided matches we've had actually in ANZPL. What do you guys actually put that down to? Did you feel like you were playing really well tonight, or did you think maybe it was a little bit of a slow? Obviously, it was a slow start for the Scorpions. Let's not talk about what happened on Cliff.
Yeah.
But did they just turbo tilt, or were you guys playing really well? What do you sort of think?
I mean, I'll say Napalmer flipped his tank on the first map, right? That's a big thing to go off. You go straight to the turbo tilt once you do something like that. However, we don't train throughout the season. We're notoriously a team that really doesn't pay much attention to it until we get to the finals. We actually did a little bit of training before the finals, so we're pretty primed and ready to go. I would attribute the wins, though, straight to Rainbow. His strategies are just better than anybody else can come up with. It's just a fact.
Fair enough.
Now, with the fact that you guys locked in for the Grand Finals, out of the technically 3 remaining teams that are yet to, play it out and score that second spot for the Grand Finals, who would you prefer, or who would you want to verse in the Grand Finals?
JS. I want to see JS at the finals. That's what I want. I want JS to come to the finals, and I want them to be able to give us a chance to get them back for last year, for last season. All right? JS kind of hurt us a little bit last season. I want to see him there. So I want him to win the next game and then beat the Scorpions, which I know he can do, and then we'll see him in the Grand Final.
All right, well, the challenge has been set by Wymo. And yes, we will see you in 3 weeks' time, mate. Congratulations. You get a couple weeks off to watch and see how it goes. And yeah, good luck in a few weeks' time. The Grand Final ANZPL.
I'll see you guys there, yeah?
We'll do. Maybe. We'll do. Maybe. They let Elvish Guy back over the border. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But there you go. Pretty confident. Don't do much work all season long, Jordan. And came to finals. Easy done. Now we're doing some work. It's like, haven't bothered to study all year long. Still did pretty well in the tests. And now I thought I'd, put a couple of hours in, and here we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I've been saying all season long, isn't it? It doesn't really matter necessarily where you place in the regular season if you make it into playoffs. As long as you make it into playoffs, you can't place 5th or 6th. Sorry, Action X and Bulldogs. That's not good enough. But as long as you place in the top 4, and then you come into the playoffs and you actually, step up your level and become that championship team for the 3 weeks that you need to be, or 2 weeks in this case for the Sentinels, who only have to now play 2 matches in the playoffs. That's kind of what matters. I mean, that's very real possibility that Sentinels sort of just took it in that kind of frame of mind and decided, look, let's make sure we do make top 4. But once we do get there, we're going to remind everyone exactly why we are considered favorites, even if maybe during the regular season it didn't look like it sometimes.
Yeah, and to be fair, Cthulhu, they were the back-to-back champions, almost the back-to-back champions before JS came at the end of Season 3. So, serious potential, and I wouldn't be surprised if in a couple of weeks' time they make this 3 out of 4 grand finals go to the Sentinels.
No, absolutely. Well, look, Sentinels certainly have quite a good track record going for them. So, it definitely felt like it was a little bit of a slow start for them, and just in general with the way how group stage unraveled for them. But yeah, look, if they keep on performing like this, even in the grand finals, whichever team that ends up making, even JS, I would be scared.
Yeah. I think the teams are, and that final, some teams do get that sort of finals buff as well. I kind of feel like the Scorpions get the anti-buff, the debuff when it comes to finals. And teams like the Sentinels and last season the Panthers kind of got that buff as well. And that, you can play so well for 10 weeks, but if you get the debuff when it comes to finals, doesn't matter. You're not going to make it through to the one that counts. So only a couple of weeks left. One more shot here for the Scorpions next week in that consolidation final, but they will have to beat the winner of the next game. So still a bit of work for them to do. And I think off the back of tonight's result, it's one thing to come out of this and have been like, oh, we went down to match 6. We went down to the final battle, whatever it might be. But they didn't get that far. The night, to me, Jordan, it kind of feels like it was over on the flip. It was over on the flip.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, not obviously in hindsight, it's easy to say that, and you're probably correct, but I had my hopes that this wouldn't end up being the be-all, end-all for the season, because, it happens, right? I mean, yeah, we're going to have a laugh about it. Napalmer's probably feeling pretty rough at the moment, but this kind of thing happens, and I think you have to be able to shake it off. If you want to be a championship team, you have to make sure that if that occurs, it is only one game out of a potential 7, so it's not the end of the world. Clearly, in this case, it was, or potentially could have contributed to it being, the end of the series for the Scorpions. But, I'm hoping that they can take some learnings from that and look at it and say, yep, I mean, it sucks, but we kind of just have to move on.
And the reality is, if a person flipping at the start of game 1 is enough to tilt the team out and make you lose 3-4 in a row, go down to the consolidation final, there are bigger issues at play that you need to address before you get to final anyway, because that stuff's going to happen and you need to be able to get over it. You need to be able to kick the ball out on the first kickoff of the match and have a penalty at halfway and be like, doesn't matter, we can come back from this. So, big week for them next week for the Scorpions. They have 7 days to see how that goes. Obviously, we have a game coming up now, our lower bracket final, Panthers v the Conquerors, and these two teams, they don't get any second chances. They have to be informed now. They don't get a shot to fix things, to make things better later. It's all about how do they go tonight. One of them will head to next week and play the Scorpions. The other one will fall out in 4th place. To be fair, not a bad place to be, but I'm pretty sure everyone wants to make it to Fortress Melbourne. You saw Wymo call out JS. He wants to see the Panthers at Fortress Melbourne so he can take them down in the grand final and perhaps get a little bit of revenge. But we're getting so close to the grand final. We're running out of weeks for you to win a HyperX headset. Every week on broadcast, we give one away, a custom HyperX Cloud 2 wired headset thanks to our sponsor HyperX. If you want to win one, all you have to do is spam HyperX in chat. If you want to know more about the headset, you can use exclamation HyperX to find out more. We see so many players with these. They look fantastic. I've got my own HyperX headset. So do you guys. We've been loving it all season long. So don't miss your shot. A few weeks left to win. Tonight could be your night. Get in there. Tonight was certainly the Sentinels' night for sure. They're the winners. And I'm worried. I'm worried for everyone else because they just looked on point. So, production's yelling at me for taking too long, so I'll just take a quick break, just slow it down. No, we'll go to a break. When we come back, it is our lower bracket final. The Panthers v the Conquerors. We'll see you soon. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
Pushed up and absolutely demolished 390 in, 806 in. But again, where's Whippet? Where's that push coming around? That wraparound could be big. This is where the deal breaker could happen.
He has enough to finish off Russian in that VZ55. The only way this works out is if Russian was able to turn and finish off with that final shot.
Mary.
He's not able to do it. Napalm now in the 1-on-3. He's got 986
Mary, where you are.
HP. Needs to kill 2+2 with this next shot, but he will not be able to, and that pretty much seals the deal if it wasn't already. Scorpions, have they read this one wrong? There are too many fast Conquerors tanks in the mix right now. Those 50Bs are going to do some work, but some shots not connecting on the Scorpion side, and Conquerors is looking still relatively good. Very turn up on the reload. Whippet perhaps also on the reload. Starting to be a bit of a mess here, to be quite frank with you, Cthulhu. But Aussie finds that opener. Knight grabs a trade, and all of a sudden we're again still just waiting to see how this one will play out. Will those 50Bs get a reload or not?
But yeah, I think Conquerors may have a little bit overestimated their opposition. Whilst Russian could be taken out here by Whippet by a well-placed shot if he still has one. Yeah, that's good and all. But yeah, with the Napalm still being having majority of the HP, Whippet will have to do some rather mad plays here to try to stay alive.
And this is what the STRV is all about. I think Conquerors have dropped the ball a little bit here. They've gotten a little bit too greedy to chase down JT. He's done enough to bait them away. And now Russian is just farming up a storm. He's at 3k damage already. And he is just clipping out into Louis, who is sitting in that IS-7 out in the middle of no man's land. And I think he's just firing on reload. I mean, this is just perfect DPM from Russian in that STRV. In the meanwhile, they're trying to jump over to mid. They're trying to take down Knight, but he can now play hull down behind that carcass and behind the rock. He's going to be difficult to deal with.
Russian's still healthy. JT is still, it's a LT. You could just keep on going for a reset. And right now, basically what Conquerors are preying on is the idea of not being reset by the Sturv. And well, yeah, they need to cap. Unfortunately, no chance whatsoever. And yeah, with that Sturv now farming up a storm, that's basically a GG for this round.
Yeah, I don't think Whippet's going to be very happy about this one at all. Oh dear, that's not gone very well at all. And Merry Turnip is probably going to be suffering much the same fate. He's the only tank in this area of the map anymore. Louis, look, he can render some degree of assistance, but he's a bat chat on 400 and there's not much that he's going to do about it either. Scorpions are going to walk away with this victory. There is nothing to be said about it anymore. This is a walk in the park from here, and Conquerors, they have just been completely bamboozled. That's unfortunate for Action X, it's unfortunate for Conquerors, but for the Panthers, that's exactly what they want to be seeing, because that should lock them into the top 4. Critical giving us the salute right at the end there. He knows he's going to be done in just a second. Gets one more shot off for the fantasy points, but that's going to be about it. Sort of feels like it's a 3-on-2 until that crossfire starts to come into effect. But of course, there is an ace up the sleeves of the Action X. It's the CS63 wrapping around the back. Val catching Bucket after he's just fired. We'll be able to take him down in just a moment. That's going to be the first pick of the round. And now a 4-on-5. No cap pressure needed as Action X goes storming through the Bulldogs ranks, and they now take down a second.
Yeah, this is all basically fell apart for the Bulldogs. And what a way to do it. I mean, it looked a little bit spooky at the moment when that whole middle engagement was happening. But yeah, even with Dongalord taking yet another clip from the VZ.
Action X really recognizing the scenario that they're going up against and that they're going to be able to get away with things like this. You can see the benefit that is already presenting. Bucket has got nowhere to go. If he drives forward, he gets shot by Iron Guard. If he drives backward, he gets farmed by the Kranwagen and the Batchat. And so this is going to be the freest win of Action X's lives. These are some free fantasy points for the boys.
This is really at the end of it all. And yeah, look, I think for Action X, they're looking pretty good to wrap it all up basically in their favor. And certainly Sand River has been kind of a point of practice for the AX squad. Yeah, Bulldogs, this is the exact position that they have been kind of forced now to flat out push into it. Madhouse will have a really nice position to keep on farming CJ. If CJ won't be too careful. And an Ignite as well. Oh, that is tragic there for the E100 of Bulldogs.
Yeah, AVP on fire. Not very fun times at all for the Bulldogs. Madhouse is coming off of his high ground perch, but ultimately it's going to be a little too late. Yeah, you might even get the reset here again for Bulldogs, but just look at the utter devastation that has been wreaked upon their lineup. Madhouse arrives with a full amount of HP, even an ammo rack on to solve that if it wasn't getting any worse for the Bulldogs tonight. So let's see what they're going to be able to do with it. AVP in that 4005, can he one-shot anyone? I'm not sure that he can. Like, is it likely that he's going to get a pen onto a 30B or a Cax? Maybe, I suppose it's possible! Not quite the one-shot, though. So, you'll take it, though. You'll take it. Madhouse is going to get his entire clip off. Bucket is there on the side as well. And you get one more. The damaged ammo rack? Maybe not. Yeah, but Wymo is just sitting around the corner here as well, biding his time. Oh, Rainbow! Oof. That's not gone exactly where he wanted it to go, but end of the day, his job really here is to survive as long as possible. They need a rescue ship to come and save them at this point. I'm not sure that it's here just yet. Cindy, a 1-for-1 trade, not too bad, as Scuba does get that knock onto a Rainbow.
But yeah, look, this is still a bit sketchy.
Yeah, you're right, but this is good focus fire coming through from the Sentinels. If they can take down JS, he is the tank which has a little bit higher DPM, and that's what Returned is looking for. It's going to be clutchable for the Return. He has that amount of HP which he needs. Doesn't necessarily end up working out there, though.
Damaging guns, yeah, the Return is not particularly having a whole great deal of fun. Well, this does look like the Panthers are about to wrap it all up. I say that though, this might just end up being overturned if the Return will be able to bounce a couple more shots here.
This is going to be the world's most comical 1v1, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoy watching this one, because both players now are just going to try to play hull down against one another until they're off the reload, and then while they're reloading, they're trying to block the other's shot with their gun. That's why they're kind of whittling the turrets right now, seeing what they can do. I have to say, though, I think Returned is kind of winning this fight at the moment.
Welcome back to ANZ PL. It is the first week of playoffs, and tonight has not gone the way I thought it was going to go. It's one thing to get my predictions wrong, Jordan. It's another thing to have it look like the Sentinels just played the Bulldogs and not the #1 ranked team on the ladder, the Scorpions. An entirely wild result, 4-0, the Sentinels through to the grand final. The Scorpion through to next week and one more chance, and perhaps back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I think it's definitely back to the drawing board. They've got a lot of work to do. You know, next week it might be a bit of in theory, a bit of an easier match than what they would have had to have faced tonight against the Sentinels, but even then, you're probably assuming, look, best case scenario, we get through to that grand final. We're going to have to play them again. What are we going to do? Playing on land as well. That's another factor. Something that Scorpions, and in fact, for the vast majority of the players in the lower bracket now, it's not something that they will have actually dealt with. Because if you remember, it was the Bulldogs and the Sentinels last time we were at Fortress, and pretty much all the Bulldogs players are not in, and pretty much only the Sentinels players have actually played on land. So bad news for everyone else.
Been there, done that, and it is very, very different from playing at home in your PJs, right? And be able to jump up and go do whatever you want and come back. It's an entirely different world up there on stage. And I think having played there once already and coming out on top, certainly going to be an advantage for the Sentinels. But for this Scorpions team, we kind of been talking, gents, like, you know what? At the start of the night, it was probably a given they're going to make it through to the grand final. But Cthulhu, there are two teams potentially in their way. Our next match, the Panthers v the Conquerors. It is Team 3 versus Team 4. And this one, this is do or die for both of these teams. The Panthers, they made their way from, pretty far down the leaderboard in Season 3 and did manage to make their way all the way into the Season 3 grand final. This season, Cthulhu looking to go one better.
Absolutely, yeah. Look, Panthers, they have seen a bit of a late start, really, to their run, to their performance. But once they've managed to get fired up, they've been looking pretty solid. I mean, their general performance has been a little bit, questionable. But I mean, you look at the season at glance. the majority was still relatively okay. I mean, they're managing to get consistent wins against Conquerors previously, certainly sign for a good possibility here. But losing out to Sentinels, Scorpions, and once to Action X, but that was at the beginning of the season, certainly signs that even if they do get to that, I suppose the second match against Scorpions, things might be a little bit problematic.
Yeah, things might be less than ideal. You look back last week, and yeah, okay, you lose to the Sentinels. We just saw the Scorpions get 4-0'd as well. The big one for me here, Jordan, perhaps, is that they're yet to beat the Conquerors. They've versed them twice. They've gone down to them twice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's that, and then, yeah, like you've sort of said, even if they do get that over the line, the record against the Scorpions as well is not looking fantastic by any stretch of the imagination. So it's a real gauntlet run here for the Panthers, and I think that's kind of the nature of the beast, right? When you are in that bottom side of the bracket, it is always going to be a bit of a gauntlet run, but as we've seen evidenced by Sentinels already tonight, doesn't necessarily mean that just because you haven't had the greatest of regular seasons, you can't show up in a big game like this one and get it over the line pretty comfortably. The Panthers have been putting in the work, and same can obviously be said for the Conquerors as well. This is going to be a matchup that they can use to start to, I guess, leapfrog their way into that grand final, and maybe springboard is a better word, because they really need to start to build that momentum through that lower bracket. Go on, then face the Scorpions, play well in that game, and then start to think about the big dogs, which is now, of course, as we know, the Sentinels.
Yeah, and I guess the other piece for me, and maybe this is stretching it, and you can correct me, but, you know, the Panthers and the Matildas were, I think, 3 and 4 last season. They both won their semi-finals, then made it through to the grand final against probably the odds. And this Conquerors lineup, Jordan, you know, the big talking point at the start of the season was that the Conquerors ended up with quite a few players from that Matildas team. Yeah,
I mean, that's very, very true. It was Mary Turnip, Whippet, and 2+2, if I remember correctly. There might have been another player in there as well. Mine's getting a little bit old these days, Ben. But
yeah, welcome to the club.
Yeah, I mean, it was always an interesting concept for me, and I remember actually talking to Karath at the start of the season, and we were sort of talking about the Conquerors, and he was saying this was going to be a good team. They were going to be a contender this season, and I was sort of more on the side of the coin where I was saying I don't think you can make like a judgment call about the Conquerors just yet. We haven't seen them play. Yes, they have a core roster of the Matildas coming through, and they are adding some really good players on top of that as well. But to my mind, I just didn't have enough data. I didn't have an idea of them because we basically hadn't seen them play at the start of the season, and so I didn't know where to rank them. So I put them in last, actually, in my power rankings. But they've done really well to start the season. I feel like it did take a little bit of a tumble toward the mid and late stages of the season. You can see a lot of those tiebreaker losses there. Kind of what let them down in comparison to having a phenomenal season and potentially even walking away with the first seed. They ultimately end up in this third, fourth place matchup where it didn't really look like that was going to be the case for them this season. So I think, you know, they probably do want to do a little bit of soul searching in this matchup and looking to turn around what initially looked like it was going to be a really good season and then ended up being a bit of a okay but not amazing season. And they can still turn it into something great. We've seen the potential. When Conquerors is playing well, they're a very tough team to beat, and they also, funnily enough, have a great record against the Sentinels.
Yeah, and I think I led you guys down the garden path a couple of minutes ago because I'm looking at the numbers. I looked at the road to finals. I'm looking at what I've got on my screen here, and the reality is it's the other way around. It's the Conquerors who had struggled against the Panthers and yet to defeat them, and here they are today, Cthulhu, and I didn't predict the Panthers tonight, but look, if there was a team that they wanted to verse, maybe it is the Conquerors, and maybe it's the Conquerors' turn to prove something against the team they're yet to defeat all season.
Yeah, look, I mean, for Conquerors, yeah, it's been a bit of a odd kind of season where they've been trying to, you know, pull themselves back together, but the internal issues certainly been kind of cited quite a fair few times for them. So, kind of the idea of blending technically two rosters into one, quote-unquote, what was hoped to be the super roster, unfortunately didn't really come to fruition as much as they would have wanted it. But I reckon here against Panthers, I reckon third time might be the charm for Conquerors.
Okay, like it could be the scenario. Maps, of course, going to play a massive part in this. Prokhorovka is out, Cliff out, Mines out, Sand River out. I'm actually kind of excited what we're going to see here. Muravanka into Tundra, into Himmelsdorf, and then potentially Ghost Town. Now, if I have a think back, Jordan, I think Tundra was the map that the Panthers have really enjoyed, but they've also used that kind of similar strategy every time they played on Tundra. Muravanka, I just love as a map anyway. What do you think of these map picks here for these two teams?
I think Muravanka's a pretty interesting one, to be quite honest with you, because again, it's not a map that we really see a whole lot. The map that we've actually seen the least this season overall. Tundra is potentially a positive-looking sign for the Panthers. They have beaten Conquerors on that once. It was in that tiebreaker match that they did manage to pick up the win in. So that is definitely looking pretty good for them. But I think when it comes to these two teams, I don't really have too much to say about the map pool. I think we're kind of just going to have to go down the list. Like Prokhorovka being taken out, that was a map that we actually did see between those two teams a fair bit during the regular season. So that's it's going to make it a bit harder, I think, to predict the way this series is going to play out.
Yeah, I think it certainly will be. I'm sorry, I promised everyone a cracker of the match for the first one of the night. Turns out that the Sentinels just turned up and it was a dud. But this one's it. This is the cracker. This one's gonna be an absolute ripper of a match. And by starting off on Muravanka, Jordan, I can't help but feel we're going to be 1-1 by the end of this one. But
You would think so.
you'd like to think so if things went as they should go. But the Conquerors maybe have a different plan.
Look, if you've picked this map, you have to be thinking we can get the 2-0 on it. Otherwise, why on earth have you picked it? So I'll have to give them the benefit of the doubt and see what they can do. Attacking side start for the Conquerors. This is the side of the map that traditionally is always very difficult to find wins on. Twit in that 277 has started to take a look for some map control, but he's pretty isolated at the moment. He does have a Kranwagen behind him to help on out, and he's already spotted the info as well. So very interesting now to see how Conquerors is going to adapt to this one, Cthulhu, because I feel as though that rush in toward the one flag might have been what they were hoping for, but it was kind of dissuaded by Twit's position.
Yeah, curious about this setup, but I mean, there is still an STB1 that could apply the pressure on the 277. I am curious about this whole setup because theoretically, well, if they would have approached from the inside of the hill setup, say through 3 and 4 line, that would have been already preemptively spotted, so S-Conks would have been able to farm. But because Krans did that sort of rotation and because of all the turbo setups, they were able to actually afford to push through middle. So I'm kind of liking this setup so far. I'm not too sure how Bluey will be able to handle himself against the 705A, which has been kind of hinted previously, but more so by Conquerors, or more specifically Whippet.
Yeah.
But I'm quite keen because, I mean, you look at the win rate so far from Muravanka, 0% for Panthers, albeit one round has been very much of a meme one from them. Whereas on the side of Conquerors, it has been a 50%, where they won only on the defense. So this is their chance to redeem themselves here.
Well, I mean, to your point about Bluey and that bat chat trying to be able to deal with the 705A, he has, I think, quite rightly and quite wisely backed off of that engagement. That is not a position that you're going to be able to push in that bat chat safely, particularly when there's 2 Super Conquerors on that 3-line hill. You're just going to get farmed if you try to push in there. And to be fair, it's going to be really difficult for you to get through the 705A, let alone clip him out in a bat chat when he's on 2.4k HP. So yeah, another your attack that's maybe closed for the Conquerors, and they're going to have to think about more of a one-flag push, or in fact, even potentially, they're just going to try to overmatch Twit in that 277. They knew where he was early on in the piece, and I did say he looked a bit isolated. As I've mentioned, he has the backup of Lightning Man in that Kranwagen, but I'm not sure how much that's really going to help him out. He is now in what amounts to almost a 1-on-3, 1-on-4. A lot of damage done on the cross to those Conquerors tanks, but they have found the opening pick.
That is a lot of damage that has been bled, and I'm a little bit concerned / confused as to how is that bleed even kind of allowed. Where was Mary's kind of dedication there? Because I think if instead of Bluey pushing, if Mary pushed, that would have been a completely different turnout, with Lightning Man still being able to farm things up there. Whippet completely isolated. If that 705A and the S-Conk do rotate, this is going to be the end of Whippet rather quickly. Oh man. It's a bit of a questionable kind of place so far, but at least yeah, I suppose taking out one of the guns is good, and Twit's position has been a little bit of a risky one to allow to stay alive. But I mean, leaving 2+2 on one shot, Bluey technically within a one shot realm, at least to 705A. That's where my question is kind of, was it even worth it? But Whippet is looking to try to maybe change things around. But again, Lightning Man has such a power position where he could literally just farm up Whippet, and yeah, there's the track damage. Thankfully, though, at least for Whippet, he can back out.
Yeah, he can, but
Not
he
for
might
long,
be in a
though.
bit of trouble. He'll probably get taken on by God Mode
Where's that shot?
and JS in that 705A and Super Conk respectively.
just
Shot
missed.
goes a little bit wayward. He's got the backup here of Mary.
Okay.
And of course, the onus is still on the Conquerors. They're on the attacking side here. Critical is going to try to push forward to the next house to find an angle onto Goober. And this is really impressive, the way the Conquerors are being able to work their way through the map, find angles, isolate targets. That's 2 tanks now that they've taken down one by one. And they have, to an extent, not been punished for it. Yes, they've taken damage, Cthulhu. They haven't lost a tank yet, and guns in the game is so important.
Absolutely, yeah. Lightning Man is still clipping. This opens a huge door for Critical to start to move in, but he's moving on solo. No push from 2+2. Now the clips are starting to come around. Now this is where things might start to get dicey, and the lineup shot is there. It is a finisher as well onto the Kran. 2+2 is only 26 HP remaining. This still has the full possibility of falling apart for Conquerors, and I say that though. Lightning Man just finishes 2+2 as well. Crit, unfortunately, a heavily mistimed push results in his demise and his teammates' demise as well.
Well, Whippet just has to now try to survive. He's really got to try to play this one out slow, but ultimately that Kranwagen on the reload. Lightning Man 1 second away. He's going to start to clip out into the side of Whippet, and of course, that will be that. Whippet is down and out, and the Conquerors, after a good start, after having the tank advantage 3 on 5, it's that HP deficit that starts to get the better of them. Merry Turnip is going to have to go massive right now. He's in that STB1. He had the HP. He knows Lightning Man's on the reload, and he had to try to get some damage out, but has he bitten off a little more than he can chew? That is not a favorable trade at all. Louis in the bat chat, available with a full clip reloaded, but can't fire a single shot. And the Panthers playing this one out to perfection. I say the Panthers, but really, it's Lightning Man, JS, and God Mode. The 3 Musketeers for the Panthers that are getting this one over the line.
Yeah, Lightning Man had a perfect position to basically counter both of the pushes. And yeah, look, it feels rather weird with the way how things just turned out. Just far too much damage, well, taken initially for Conquerors on that cross against Twit. And then from there on, 1-by-1 push did not particularly bode too well for Conquerors, which is basically, well, resulting in a pretty free farm for Panthers, to be honest.
Yeah, things actually started out pretty well there for the Conquerors. It looked maybe, Jordan, you know, they'd taken a lot of damage, but as you said, guns in the game, and they'd managed to take out a couple of the Panthers players, and we're thinking, oh, maybe they do have a plan. And let's be real, the Conquerors did. It's just, at times, most of the time, very difficult to make that attack side work here in Morabunka.
Yeah, it is. And I think that game was a perfect example of why that is the case, right? Goober and Twit, they both go down without having done a huge amount of damage. Obviously, they get isolated, and Conquerors played the early game really well. You may make the argument that they could have sacrificed a little bit less HP for those 2 picks, but end of the day, you got to do something. The issue comes when you're trying to push in to that top kind of corner of the map, and someone like Lightning Man in that Kranwagen is just able to sit behind the craziest of defilates. You know, you've got cover from every single angle, basically. There's a lot of bushes to play with. You can stay hidden until you start firing your shots, and inevitably, tanks are just going to have to push into your sightline, and even if they don't, if they get on the cap, you have reset angles from there as well. So it's a map that's very, very difficult to attack on. I've got to give credit to the Conquerors for making it as close as they did. It looked pretty good, but there's a reason we talk about this as being a 1-1 map.
Yeah, it's an interesting pick for me. I'm gonna be honest with you. And both of the picks and bans from both of these games, I find a bit peculiar. Even like the Tundra, maybe, and we'll see later, maybe that the Conquerors have a plan for playing on Tundra, because I think the Panthers have used something similar. But Cthulhu, talk us through, at this point, the Conquerors, they've taken a bit of damage, but still looking pretty good.
Yeah, at that point, it felt like Conquerors may have had a really good chance, but this very short, this where Critical kind of falls and Lightning Man is still left with 1,000 HP, basically meant that no matter what, he gets to survive the whole push. And I have to say that the fact that, well, whilst yes, both teams dedicated their push there to just one side, having Bluey in a bat chat that could have essentially played initially for the spot, seen that 705A has managed to rotate, and then, you know, decided to repush again the forest to try to get that sort of, I suppose, the flank play in the similar style how I guess you could reference the play of Russian on Himmelsdorf. Whenever he gets to play on 50B, he will be the one to swoop in from the side and get the, you know, the clip damage in. Same could be done by Bluey. Unfortunately for him, yes, he ended up dedicating himself to the push against Twit, but even then, Batchat still has a phenomenal camo. He could have backed out, rotated around, Batchat still has enough time, time and the engine power to actually make a quick rotation through. So there has been a few possibilities. Unfortunately, it feels like for Conquerors it was a little bit of a tunnel vision play, which resulted in, well, this kind of result. So they still get one more chance to make it a 1-1, which will be, again, very much needed for them at this point. And kind of from there on out, look, it's everyone's game.
Certainly is. The Panthers maybe with a bit of an opportunity here, right? We assume this is 1-1. You say, well, almost no shot of the Panthers picking up the attacking side of Murabunka, but they've really got nothing to lose. And Jordan, as we get back into the match, I can't help but feel maybe it's worth the Panthers just pulling something crazy out of the bag and just seeing if they can make it work. What's the worst thing that happens?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they've kind of upheld their end of the bargain, right? They've got that one round already on the defensive side, and they lose here. I don't think that's too much of a concern. It's going to be a bit of a weird game already, though, as we get a very early engagement. Whippet, what is going on? He's out in the middle of nowhere. Definitely wasn't expecting that timing from the Panthers, and immediately you start to wonder, can Panthers actually get a win here on the attack? That's about the way you'd want to start. They are, however, getting farmed by the Super Conquerors. Goober in the bat chat is going to go chasing Bluey, see if he can get a bit of damage out here. 4 shots left in the clip. Not going to be enough to finish Bluey off, but certainly going to be enough to do a lot of damage. Instantly goes on the reload after firing a couple and will continue the chase. Lightning Man is there as well, but I wonder if he is getting a little bit overambitious here, because Bluey still has 3 shots left in the clip.
Yeah, Bluey actually does a pretty solid job here of distracting the both of the bat chats, so it should be a relatively even ground from here on out, given that the Kranwagens might just end up clipping out. JS just went down, so we're back onto even Steven. And the health advantage is still actually workable here. Lightning Man.
Oh, the fire.
No, that's a tilter. That's a turbo tilter, one could even say, for Bluey.
I mean, he was dead anyway, but it was an extra point of damage into Lightning Man. He would have been a 1-shot instead of a 2-shot.
Yeah. Now it's, basically a race against the time. Mary is 1-shot, basically gets finished off by Goober. Yeah, things are just spiraling out of control here for Conquerors. And, yeah, look, sad times, given that, again, the percentage on the map picks has been looking pretty favorable for Conquerors. I mean, you look at all of their picks just period, and it was looking just for the majority of it in their favor. 50% on this map, 75 next map, 70 on I believe the third map, and 60 on the last one. So overall looked much better, but it's only the stats. The end result completely differs.
Yeah, an absolute disaster here for the Conquerors. They did not need that at all. It was all but a given that this was going to go 1-1 after Murabunka. A map that the Conquerors picked, but the Panthers were having absolutely none of it, Jordan. Straight into it, straight into a firefight. They pick up the first tank in the battle, and from there, things just go downhill fast for the Conks.
Yeah, I mean, geez, that is a bit of a weird one, isn't it? I don't know that the Conquerors were expecting the attack to be quite so forward, quite so aggressive, and they were expecting to be able to take some positions and just be able to set up and chill, but ultimately Whippet was caught in transition and he was a dead man from the outset. There was nothing he could do, and once you lose a tank that quickly, even if you do get a bit of responding damage, if you're not able to trade that tank down, it's a real problem. Obviously, Bluey's positioning as well in that bat chat, having driven essentially past the Panthers, meant that he was a pretty easy picking as well. So it was a culmination of issues that all sort of came together and blew up in the face of the Conquerors. A 0-2 start, as you've mentioned, on their own map choice. And I wonder if we're headed in the same direction as the last series.
Look, I've got Chinese food in the fridge, Jordan. I'm ready to go and have dinner, but this isn't the night that I was looking for. This is, I was hyped for tonight. I was ready for some epic battles, and so far, I guess that was kind of epic if you're a Panthers fan. But Cthulhu, this battle, I don't think I've seen a more one-sided attacking side win on Muravanka in a while.
Yeah, look, I mean, it did catch poor Conquerors off the guard with the sheer overpush that was committed, and it worked out perfectly there. Caught them exactly where they wanted, and Panthers, yeah, they put in the effort. They have the coordination, they have the chemistry, despite some of the earlier in the season shortcomings. They're a team that should not be discounted in any shape or form. And look, the way how they've played it almost felt like, almost to a certain point, almost like a high mind.
Yeah, well, I think we always kind of do discount the Panthers a little bit. They don't do themselves much of a favor usually in the first few weeks of the season. But again, it doesn't matter, particularly in a 10-week season with this playoffs format. You just need to be informed in the last few weeks, need to get yourself through. And that's exactly what they've done. We'll go from Muravanka, the pick of the Conks, who lost both of those maps, now into Tundra, a map that the Panthers have actually been pretty good on all season long. And they're only 2 wins away now from finding themselves a battle against the Scorpions next week and a shot at that slot in the grand final. A little bit of a journey for them here, but so far tonight for the Panthers, things are going swimmingly well, and I don't even think cats normally like water. My question though, Jordan, when we get into this, the Panthers going to start off on defense first. There have been a lot of battles with the Panthers on Tundra this season. There's like an hour and a half of content on this map that the Conquerors could have watched. And how many times have we seen the Panthers push through River with like 3 or 4 tanks and come out and win? Surely they can't do it again tonight. Surely it doesn't work out that way once more.
It's a bit of a mind game, isn't it? Maybe they do that, maybe they don't. Conquerors don't know. And of course, you can say that same thing about Himmelsdorf, right? One of the reasons maybe why Scorpions picked it against Sentinels was that they would have had a lot of footage to take a look at, but I don't think it helped them there. And to answer your other question, Panthers are excellent swimmers, apparently. So,
did you Google that?
Google foo myself.
All right.
And that could be a good sign for the Panthers. Anyway, 2-0 lead. That's a very positive sign for them. We'll see what the Conquerors bring to the table here on the attack. Fairly standard defensive setup by the looks of things here for the Panthers.
Yeah, pretty much everyone seemed to be playing the tanks that they were quite happy with, so understandably so. On the side of Conquerors, yeah, the introduction of the double VZ is usually, par for the course that Conquerors usually like to bring at least some form of autoloaders, and this time it's the Czechoslovakian ones. Full send. 3 cap onto the 2 flag, and there is a possibility of doing so. This was the play back on Sand River, and it was reset at the final moment, which was a complete tilter for Conquerors. So they're trying to do the same thing. Twit might just be able to have those free shots once they do cross the bridge, but hopefully Whippet will be able to basically hold off the push, but it doesn't look like the case. JS as well on the flank is looking to pretty much correct all the things, and yeah, this may end up being very, very tragical.
Well, this has to be the perfect timing for the Panthers. They've got to all go together. They're really holding it down to the wire. Lightning Man strikes. Perfectly timed. Well done from the Panthers. But how well can they trade out? Lightning Man, he's going to get his full clip off, so he's done his job. He's got that reset. God mode in the Super Conqueror now needs to pen his shot. The CS63 of JS has to get involved, and already we see an exchange. In fact, even an advantage for a brief moment. Or the Panthers, a 1-for-1. There is, however, a 2-on-1 happening. And it is the Conqueror's players starting to get farmed. God mode gets blown up. It was an ammo rack. A Whippet will follow suit fairly shortly. A 3-on-3 to ensue. Twit, full HP. Merry Turnip also maxed out. But in a Super Conqueror. And of course, that is a very scary tank to have alive and at full HP at this point of the game. JS on the flank, though, a key difference maker.
Yeah, JS could make the big difference here. We've seen in the example of Sentinels versus Scorpions how the crossfire was important, and CS63 does bear quite a fair bit of damage on its gun, so understandably so, this is where they have to be very cautious about. Critical been taken down to basically 1 HP, one shot, and there he is, finished 1-for-1 yet again. Trax needs to make the play now. It's two very isolated 1v1s, and CS63 might be in a whole lot of danger, but so is Mary. And the 60p, 750 alpha damage does strike. That's a 784. But now the big reload comes in. 10 seconds. That's where Mary could sink in yet another shot to equalize.
JS has the advantage. JS has the advantage in this fight against the VZ55. He knows the Trax is not going to be able to clip him out. He's just happy to drive at him and take that one-on-one and assume that, of course, Twit is going to be able to survive solo against the Super Conqueror because Super Conqueror, very slow tank. 60 TP, pretty decent armor, lots of HP right now, and of course, instantly it's back into the 2-on-1. Expertly played by the Panthers, and they are really crossing their T's, dotting their I's, and ensuring that this is 100% going to be their round. Merry Turnip would have to pull off an absolute miracle to win it from here.
Yeah, Mary will have to engage all the late game of plays here to try to make it work. I mean, theoretically, if Panthers do get a little bit too overzealous, he might just be able to do it, but again, that pretty much relies on the fact that JS bounces both of his shots, and Mary gets to basically focus fire initially on the JS, whilst Twit is still continuing to make the rotation, so a little bit of a ring around the rosy, but yeah, this is all looking a little bit dire. You look at the rotations, JS is just pretty much chilling really around the rocks, and he is ready to go in for a bit of a crossfire between himself and Twit. And Twit, yeah, look, about to load in just a fresh new round, looking to get some ends going, and yeah, this is not looking particularly too swell here at all for the S-Conk player.
Well, the worst part of it is that Panthers literally do not even have to do anything. It's Merry Turnip that has to try to force the issue, and that's why he's trying to push around that corner and fire that shot. It looks a little bit silly in hindsight, right? Because he's just taken 2 shots for 1. He didn't even penetrate his shot, but he's on the attack. He has to force the issue. He has to take these kind of risks, and the reality is for Panthers, they can sit there and do absolutely nothing and win this game. So Merry Turnip, he recognizes this one's probably pretty done, and he'll just let it fall by the wayside. It's a 3-0 lead right now for the Panthers, and we saw how that went when Sentinels got a 3-0 lead. It's tough to come back from.
Yeah, it surely is tough, but the Panthers managed to come through with the goods there. A very impressive result. That one down to the line with Lightning striking just in the nick of time. Cthulhu, I thought the Panthers were done and dusted. They get the reset and they manage to grind it back. And JS coming home. He's bringing it home. He's done almost 4.5k damage there.
I mean, the timer was saying 0. It was just about half a second away from fully ticking over. And yeah, it's just, look, I gotta say, it's a bit tragic there for Conquerors. But yeah, look, Panthers, perfect timing on pretty much everything, really, with the way how they've played it all out, with the way how they held those crossfires. They clipped Conqueror's wings here in every shape and form. It's only Trax who was able to cross that kind of threshold of the 2k damage. The rest of the team just barely scraping for the 1.8, 1.6. So it's been, yeah, rather just an unfortunate turnout, and only being 1 round away from that contention against the Scorpions for the grand final. I mean, gotta say Panthers would be feeling quite well, whereas on the side of Conquerors, yeah, that's 110% a tilter.
Yeah, Jordan, the Panthers looking very strong right now, and I don't know what I would prefer, to be honest, out of this lower bracket final. We know that the winner is going to play the Scorpions next week, and would you rather see a team come through and absolutely dominate? Maybe you would. Maybe you wouldn't say, you know what, this Panthers team, they found form into the end of the season. They dominated the Conquerors tonight, and they were ready for the Scorpions. Or would it rather be a game where both teams perform out of their mind? It goes all the way through to the tiebreaker, and the team that wins had to really fight it through. Because right now, if the Panthers win this with one more battle on Tundra, on the attacking side of Tundra, something they have not lost all season long, 5 from 5, I think they are. There's no real it's almost like there's been no challenge tonight for them. You know what I mean? They haven't had to go through anything to get through to next week. They've just turned up and played better. I know that sounds dumb, but sometimes I think having the challenge, pushing through the fire, is a better way to do it. Maybe not.
Well, certainly if you're a Panthers fan or if you're in the Panthers camp, you want to be seeing a pretty one-sided result here. Get that confidence built up and really just send that momentum going into the game against the Scorpions. They have lost a couple of times to the Scorpions this season, but one of them was in a tiebreaker, so they've already shown the ability to make those games close against the Scorpions. And if it is going to end up being the Panthers go through to that lower bracket final, then I could foresee a pretty interesting game, particularly with the way that things played out today for the Scorpions. And the thing that's the most impressive for me about the Panthers, and I think it was really evidenced on that game right there on Tundra, was the cohesion, right? I was talking about how important it was for them to find that timing, ensure that they're all going together. And I just love the fact that Lightning Man is able to go on at the 11th hour and get that reset and make it look like it was a sure thing from the outset.
Milliseconds,
you could see that,
Jordan. It's milliseconds.
1 second,
yep,
ticking on down, and all of the Panthers players, only then are they all starting to push forward. No one's panicking, no one's pushing when there's 5 seconds left saying, I need to get the reset. Someone's made the call and said, I can get it. And they believe them, and they're working as a unit.
Only milliseconds. It's crazy to me, between great success from the Panthers and a massive failure. But they are on the edge right now. The Panthers, one win away from making their way through to the consolidation final next week. For the Conquerors, the pressure is on. They lose this, they are eliminated from the season in 4th place. No second chances. And this Panthers team have not lost on attack, Jordan.
Yeah, and apparently the attack is a little bit more favorable on Tundra as well, just in general. I don't know how many of those stats are getting inflated by the Panthers on this map in particular, but it didn't work out for the Conquerors, so there is still every possibility that the Conquerors can come back and win this round and maybe start to look for a reverse sweep, but how often do you really see that happen, especially in a best of 7? Conquerors are going to be in their own heads right now, and it's going to take a lot of mental fortitude and certainly a lot of skill as well to bring this one back from the brink.
Yeah, look, we've seen quite a lot of teams just in general even go through the whole big tilt process where they just end up getting, like you said, in there too far in their heads. But look, maybe they're still saving, and I certainly would love to see some sort of a comeback story here from Conquerors, albeit, again, if Panthers do end up performing a 4-0, that just shows that they're a team that is ready to go to the finals, and they're a team that have kind of reinforced themselves, I suppose, to go into the playoffs, to show that, look, yeah, maybe it is time for that yet another showdown between the Panthers and the Sentinels. So look, I'm all for it. I'm all for both of the turnouts, despite my predictions. I'm very much open to all of those results and very much keen for each one of them.
Well, the Panthers playing this one fairly warily at the moment on the attack. They have not rushed into anything.
I mean,
Conquerors really tried to play quick, didn't they? And it's a big discrepancy in the way these two teams have approached their attacking side of Tundra.
Yeah, I mean, it requires a whole lot of confidence to just absolutely full send it straight off the bat, and it's kind of a hope that the other team is not particularly expecting this sort of play to happen and kind of catch them off guard and everything. But I think for Panthers, they were to a certain degree expecting this kind of play, plus, I mean, the setup pretty much allowed them to spot that in a relatively early stages. But this rotation between the 60 TP and the S-Conk plus a Cran could do a whole lot of good, because I mean, you look at it from this position. For 50B, he'll need to rotate quite wide to even have any sort of impact, and say a 60p plus the Cran could absolutely decimate the French tank. There's only a singular S-Conk that could immediately start applying pressure to that whole push. And if easy S-Conk, I'm not even talking at this point about the 277, they will take their sweet time to re-enter the battle. So the south push would make sense, plus the STB on the snipe to cover whatever and whoever decides to cross the bridge. Yeah, Panthers are setting themselves up for a bit of a success.
Panthers on the move. It's going to be the trio of heavy tanks sent in toward the 2 flag. Spotted out early by God Mode. Or rather, God Mode spotted out early. It's Critical that's doing said spotting. The tanks actually getting lit up there as well. So Conqueror's getting a pretty good early insight as to what they might have to deal with. It'll be a 2 flag push. They'd have been relatively wary of that, having not seen too much on the northern side of the map anyway.
Like that, I'm a little bit concerned that Crit kind of just almost allowed that sort of push to happen. Not a whole lot of damage. Well, no damage, as a matter of fact, has been dealt to the 60p on that push, given that it was a very much kind of all in without a whole lot of cover. So feels rather unconventional, let's call it that, but curious how will now Conquerors really be able to respond, because we look at the position of Whippet. The 50B is preparing to possibly push the bridge, but instead opting out of that push and going towards the low end under the river push to come happen. So assuming that they are looking to try to take on either the Cran or the S-Conk initially, and then to actually focus on the 60 TP, but Trax is about to drive directly into the sides of the set 60 TP, and this is where the problems are about to start mounting as the repush now starts.
Off we go for the Conquerors, and we'll see if they can do what Panthers just did to them. I have to say, Cthulhu, it's not looking quite like that's going to happen. Critical is getting farmed.
What is happening?
He's down to 83 HP. Maybe lucky to be alive right now. But I dare say that's not going to last long. Goober with the STB-1. He fires one more shot into 2+2 before turning his attention to Critical, and is going to be looking for that opening frag of the round. God Mode will find a second surely here in just a moment. On to 2+2. Elects to actually fire into the VZ55, knowing that Goober has the shot as well. 2 already for Goober. And this is the dying straits now for the Conquerors, as they will be saying goodbye to their ANZ PL Season 4 dreams. It's going to be a 4-0 for the Panthers. It's a victory lap now at this point, Cthulhu. The Conquerors are done. The Panthers will progress.
Yeah, that's it. Basically, it's game over. For Conquerors, rather, well, again, a tragic one is the only way to really describe this, given that, well, the hopes and prayers and dreams were certainly there for Conks, but last 4-5 weeks have been just absolutely out of their form, out of shape, and a very disconnected play between the whole team, which ended up, yeah, in this kind of result, a 4-0. If you would have told me that that is going to be the result before the broadcast even started, I wouldn't have believed it, honestly.
Yeah, the Panthers playing this one to perfection. The 4-0 over the Conquerors, and they progress to next week's consolidation final against the South Sydney Scorpions. One of those two teams will be going head-to-head with the Sentinels in the grand final at Fortress Melbourne on June 25. But they didn't go through the water, Jordan. I kind of feel like maybe the Conks were, maybe a little bit baited like me, ready for the push that we've seen time and time again, and the Panthers were having none of it. They weren't going anywhere near that. And I'm still a little bit confused by the fact that we saw 4 or 5 tanks essentially roll into the cap there from the Conquerors when there was only one tank from the Panthers to begin with. Maybe someone can explain that to me, but it really went downhill very quickly for the Conquerors, unfortunately.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it really looked like they were trying to sort of take a leaf out of the Panthers' book, but I mean, I suppose there's two sort of schools of thought. Maybe the Panthers had a better defensive setup, and they were able to, deal with the Conquerors tanks coming over the hill with a couple of better angles, a couple of better crossfires than what the Conquerors were able to do on their own defensive side. Or the Conquerors took a route such that, they were open to a lot of those angles, and maybe they're not as comfortable playing on this map as what the Panthers were. So a couple of things you'd have to look at there if you were to take a look at the replay, but end of the day, Panthers just seemed way more comfortable on that map, and obviously, that's something that we've seen throughout the entire season, and no reason to expect that to change going into the playoffs. And here we are with 2 4-0s today, and it sets us up for quite the interesting next week.
Yeah, well, we were indeed. It was a very peculiar night, but for fans of the Sentinels and of the Panthers, very great night to be sure. Cthulhu, two very different versions of trying to play that cap. When the Conks did it, they 3-stacked it and went for the full capture. When the Panthers did it, they just put on one and were sitting around waiting for the Conquerors to roll across and for them to start farming up. And the Panthers seemingly tonight did that so much better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They Panthers read into the playoff Conquerors really, really well. And I mean, yeah, they knew that the moment that sort of initial cap pressure happens, the moment they take, say, an extra few more moments, they will just full send it all together. And the crossfire was prepped absolutely perfectly well there without any sort of repercussions. I mean, we've seen 2+2, unfortunately, just couldn't even get any single bit of damage and got clipped out before he even managed to do anything there. Godmode was the one that finished him off pretty well, I believe, or it was either him or Gubawet, pardon me. And yeah, this was just a clinical performance from Panthers on the side of Conquerors. Yeah, look, at this point, if before at least we would know that, oh, unfortunately this kind of push didn't work out, or the other push, this time it was just in general, this one was just all on Panthers, just setting up a phenomenal crossfire, and for Conquerors not really having enough armor, not having enough just manpower really to apply the pressure to just a singular point to make that grouped up play work in any form.
Yeah, I have to be questioning now and have to be wondering going into next week, will the Scorpions let Tundra through? Because I can't imagine a scenario where you do. Maybe you do a ton of work and maybe you think you know what's going on. But you mentioned it earlier, Jordan, the mind games coming into a map that a team's won so many times and have won, to be fair, using a very similar strategy for the majority of those times they've done it on attack. And tonight we saw how preparing for that can, as you said, the mind games, it can play its part.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'd have to have a chat with them and see if that's exactly what it was like from their side of the camp, but I can only imagine that's part of, the mentality or the thought process in picking one of your opponent's better maps. I know Scorpions do play a little bit of Tundra, it's not as if this is a map that they're terrible on or anything like that, but it is a scary prospect, and it obviously opens up a lot of discussions to be had around the veto process, because for me, I didn't think Scorpions looked very good on Himmelsdorf. They didn't really get a chance to look very good on Cliff, but what we saw, it wasn't good. So you look at those two and say, maybe they're not super confident on picking those two maps again next week. You'd be very scared of the Tundra when it's coming from the Panthers, and so we'll have to end up sort of seeing how that does end up playing on out between those two teams, because the veto, it really does make a big difference in these kinds of series.
Yeah, and I wonder how much the fact that the veto process and the way that we pick maps for finals is actually really quite different to the way that we do it during the regular season. There is no real veto process. You're picking maps, and if you pick the same one, then we don't get to play it. So there's a little bit at stake there, and I wonder, if teams will adapt and learn from that as we continue to progress through seasons of ANZ PL. A team that has progressed very much so this season, the Panthers, and we have Twit here. Firstly, Twit, congratulations, mate. An absolutely perfect performance from the Panthers tonight. You look good on Muro. You looked even better, I think, on Tundra there. But I do want to talk, firstly, congrats, but the attacking side of Muravanka, that was a wild ride. How did that one come about?
The attack on Muro?
You guys just full send it.
I mean, I can't predict half the things that come out of JS's brains half the time, but we tried it in a scrim. It looked convincing, so we just did it. But everything else was just pretty much on the wing. Like after, we didn't even think they would put a VZ in the town. Maybe it was to counter like a 2-7 pushing in to the cap, but we literally just clipped them out. Like we were just so surprised. Like I even forgot to repair my driver for the half team battle. So I don't know. Half the stuff is spontaneous was the stuff that we come up with.
All right, well, talk to me about Tundra then, because that seems to be a map that's maybe not so spontaneous for you. That seems to be kind of your go-to, the stronghold maybe of the Panthers. Is that a map that you guys put a lot of time into, or have put a lot of time into, or is it something just sort of clicks? Why are you so sort of dominant on that map?
Honestly, we didn't actually expect Tundra to be our strongest map. We usually put a lot of time into Proc and Himmels, but you got to try something different a couple of times, and we pretty much sucked on Himmels most of the times we played it. So we just, as we played throughout the season, like Tundra actually turned out to be one of our best maps, and like it didn't feel like we were trying to be forced into like awkward strats or situations. It just more so happened like clean progressions. And I guess today against the Conquerors, it was pretty clean, I guess, from us. Like we didn't really have any doubts to what was happening. So yeah, it's probably one of the stronger maps we're going to keep playing on for the rest of the seasons.
Enough. Look, I mean, now you guys progressing over to the battle against Scorpions, and the possibility of then meeting Sentinels, who already, I mean, Wymo already called you out on stream, wanting, well, more so JS rather than you, but Panthers in general, wanting to have you guys at the grand finals. Against Scorpions, any doubts going in, any kind of concerns, or just full confidence and just kind of call it a day?
To be honest, I think JS would have preferred to fight against Scorpions rather than Sentinels. But I think that's more so that JT tries a little bit unpredictable things sometimes, and it's it's good to get used to different strats that people try against you. JT's obviously a very experienced caller, but it's hard to say how we'll go about against Scorpions. Probably, hopefully, better against Conquerors today. Don't know if we might see another Napalm flip when we play them, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, for Panthers fans, I'm sure they can only hope. It certainly makes life a little bit easier, but based on what we saw from you guys tonight, you're looking on form, had a reasonable run towards the end of the season. You did pretty well towards the end of Season 3. You're looking pretty good towards the end of Season 4. One more hurdle before you make your way to the finals at Fortress Melbourne. That is the Scorpions next week. Can't wait to see how you guys go, particularly after tonight's very impressive 4-0. So congrats to it. Looking forward to next week, mate, and good luck. We'll see how you go.
Yeah, thanks, Norris.
Honestly, that's two convincing victories tonight, and irrespective of who you picked, I think predictions are a bit of a silly game, if you ask me, Jordan. I think I
agree. I mean, I've been saying it all season,
Yeah, I
haven't
think predictions don't really matter.
Predictions don't really matter. It's all about the fantasy points.
But no matter who you predict, I don't think anyone thought that we were going to see 2 4-0s tonight.
No. Yeah, look, I think in a way, I could have almost been on board if someone would have told me Sentinels would have 4-0'd Scorpions, because it just seems like that's the kind of thing that could happen to Scorpions in a playoffs match against Sentinels.
Yeah.
Would have probably seen that one coming, or believed it at least. But a 4-0 from the Panthers over the Conquerors, in hindsight, yeah, it's easy to believe. They looked really good tonight, but going into it, I don't think I would have ever believed that. So to get two of them in one night, I don't really know what to say. I wonder what we're gonna get next week.
Yeah, better not be any 4-0s next week. Otherwise, I'm coming for you, because I was ready for tonight to go all of the way. For you, Cthulhu, what is the takeaway from tonight so far? We've had 2 4-0s. Two teams that have absolutely turned up and performed brilliantly, and two teams that have really, I would suggest, probably under-delivered far more than what we'd expected.
Yeah, I think for one thing, definitely that Sentinels are looking to be the team that has probably one of the highest chances to make the first place. Period. Just purely for the fact just how well they have been performing so far. The flexibility in their approaches so far has been pretty good as well. So overall, the three-peat is certainly looking very much realistic for them. On the side of Scorpions, look, yeah, again, it's the question of that initial tilt that has been kind of occasionally arising, and certainly needs to be now basically be that almost a main question for whenever Scorpions are playing. Do they fortify their mental? Do they go full tilt? And from there on already kind of base our whole, judgment off them. And on the side of Panthers, look, they just continuing their kind of the big ye-old afterburner and just completely being able to win it out. And they certainly putting in the time, the effort, the homework, and it's all been looking just pretty crisp.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Panthers lineup look that good in a very long time. Very. It's one thing to win 4-0, but the fashion they did it, convincing time and time again, very one-sided. Yeah, very impressive tonight. Let's go quickly recap tonight's results. I think everyone probably knows where we are right now. We started off the Scorps going down to the Sentinels 4-0. That was our upper bracket final. I hyped it up. I said, this new playoff format, it's fantastic. We're not going to get any of those blowouts. All of the games are going to go all the way through to the tiebreaker. And Elfish Guy, I'm sorry, but these teams have made me look like a liar, even more than normal.
Yeah, and they've made me look like a bit of a fool as well, because I predicted completely wrong again for probably the 5th week in the row. But that's fine. We had some pretty exciting games, even if they're 4-0s. You know, I think these were actually quite tantalizing results. I enjoyed sort of watching the destruction that Sentinels and Panthers were able to wreak about on their opponents, and I think it sets it up quite nicely for like either a Cinderella storyline from someone like the Panthers if they're able to get the better of the Scorpions next week, or a potential revenge storyline for the Scorpions if they're able to make their way through to that grand final as well, which would also be their first grand final of the ANZPL. So we've set ourselves up nicely for a really cool end to the season.
Yeah, we certainly have. What's less cool is producer Chris keeps telling me that I need to show the predictions. I'm not sure that we need to show the predictions tonight, Chris. I don't anyway. Sam and Elfish Guy in the bin. Cthulhu manages to gain one back. Somehow, the Ouija's pick that the Panthers are going to come out on top, and production copies their homework. Boys, I'm a little bit worried. There's a chance that no chance of Sandman losing to production, but the two of you not looking so good.
No. Hey, I'm happy I managed to just catch up to Elfish, so that's a win for me already. So we're all good on my end.
Okay.
I just blame Napalmer. It's Napalmer's fault.
I'm not going to say anything mean about Napalmer tonight. I feel bad. I feel bad for him. Feels bad times, that's for sure.
Bit of an unfortunate turnout.
Well, we can go take a look at our finals bracket, and that sort of tells the story as well. Next week, that consolidation final, the South Sydney Scorpions v the Perth Panthers, the Scorps. They got one extra life. No lives remaining now, okay? This is do or die. The team that ended the regular season on the top of the leaderboard. The Sentinels are through to the grand final. Probably, I would say, a deserved spot for them. They're looking pretty good. What it wouldn't be an ANZPL final at Fortress Melbourne without the Sentinels. I think the question is, who are they going to face? We heard it from Wymo. He wants JS and the Perth Panthers up on the stage. I'm not sure who I want at this point. There are two parts to this for me. One says I want to see the Scorps meet the Sentinels finally in a grand final, and in a grand final at Fortress of all places. But at the same time, the Panthers made through to the finals last season, the season that we weren't on the stage, and maybe they probably do deserve. I think a lot of people would love to see them at Fortress as well. So look, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what any of us think, of course. It's only going to come down to next week's matches. So let's take a look at what the matches for next week will be. It's a bit of a different one for next week, gents. It's a bit of a fun one for us because we know we have that consolidation final, but we also have our B League finals as well next week. And I think that's kind of cool because we like to see the B League teams up in on the ANZPL stream, Jordan, and potentially we'll see a B League team in the season next season as well.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't be a B League team anymore then, would they? They'd be an ANZPL team. So I suppose that's what's on offer for them. Not to mention, I'm sure there's a little bit more involved in that grand final than just a promotion slot to ANZPL. But yeah, I mean, it was a little bit interesting getting to kind of have a look at the B League match last season. I sort of recognized a few names in a couple of those teams, and the result actually didn't go the way that I thought it would, which is kind of good in a sense that you're kind of starting to see a bit of that developing talent come through, not necessarily just the known quantities being able to dominate anymore. And that's kind of the point of the B League, isn't it, right? Just bringing people in and giving them a crack and setting them up for success into the ANZPL. Speaking of which, God Mode, one of the players that did come through from the B League, is now potentially fighting for a spot in the grand final. So it just goes to show what you can do.
Yeah, God Mode's had a fantastic season and yeah, very much deserves to be in the final. I hope for his sake that they make it through. Just one game standing between them and a spot at Fortress Melbourne. We keep hyping it up, but there's a reason for it. We're going to be live on LAN, in person, on the stage, June 25, Fortress Melbourne, the grand final of ANZPL Season 4. You can get tickets. Use !finals in chat to find out more. You want to be there? We were there like May last year. We had a fantastic time, and we had to work. So if you're not working, you're going to have an even better time than we did. And I had an absolute blast. Plus, for every ticket that we sell, $10 from each ticket will head towards fundraising for Game on Cancer. Game on Cancer, that something that World of Tanks and the guys at Wargaming Sydney have been working towards helping. We know that we have that charity stream coming up on Thursday, the 9th of June. We've got donation incentives. We've got J-Rated and Kev. I think we're going to do something crazy to their hair as well. I don't know what you could do. If we shave Kev's hair, I don't think we're going to shave his head, but like that would be wild. I'd love to see Kev with like bleach blonde hair or something. I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff up. Plus, plenty of World of Tanks goodies to give away as well. And then after that one, we've got another stream with the CCs on Saturday, the 11th of June. You can find more info with !charity in chat. A great charity to support, of course. And at the same time, you get some cool World of Tanks stuff and my highlight Cthulhu. I love messing with people's hair as long as it's not mine. So anything that gets J-rated or Karath to do something wild, I'm all for it.
Yeah, look, I'm very much keen. Look, I mean, seeing Karath maybe with the color of one of the teams that he thinks that will be able to win the grand final could be one of the ways to really do it as well. I mean, seeing Karath with a bit of a blue hairline could be pretty funny. But honestly, yeah, it's all for the good cause. And I mean, I believe there's going to be some real cool auctions as well going for some rather rare tanks as well during all those streams, which would allow to nab some rather neato tanks. So look, there's all the reasoning to be there for the charity streams, and I'd be very much excited for those as well.
Certainly will. So charity streams coming up on the 9th and then the 11th, the grand finals on the 25th. Next week, as we said before, that B-League grand final, the Cairns Comets up against the Bundaberg Badgers. The great thing, Jordan, two teams from Queensland. If the Bulldogs do find themselves relegated and in the bin, at least we can replace them with a Queensland team to keep at least one in it. And then that match we were talking about, the Scorpions v the Panthers, the last slot to be filled for the ANZPL Grand Final. It's coming up on 9:30 here on the eastern side of Australia. But coming up shortly tonight, our JPL matches. We talk about this each and every week. It's round 5, I think, for them, getting to the important side of the regular season as well. Jordan, we normally kind of roll into the start of this, miss a little bit. But tonight, not going to miss any of it. Starts off at 10 o'clock, got half an hour. So plenty of opportunity to watch these games. And I've been really enjoying it. I don't know. I wonder who would come out on top, a JPL team or an ANZPL team.
Well, hopefully one day we get to find out. That's a dream in the pipeline, maybe. But yeah, I think it's definitely something to sort of check in on every now and then, particularly if you're, maybe a team playing in ANZPL or B League, because I'm sure that some of the Japanese players have different ideas on the game. You might get a bit of a different meta in some cases in different regions. That tends to happen a lot across different esports titles, where certain regions will have a specific play style versus other regions, and it can kind of give you a little idea or something that you can take a look at and maybe implement into your own gameplay. So the more regions that we have sort of involved in this 5v5 format, which is still, quite frankly, relatively fresh, the better. It's going to sort of build up everyone's skill set and hopefully leads to some pretty good things.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, even with the old WGL format, Cthulhu, things, you would see different strats evolve over seasons as formats change, as meta shifted. And, we've had 4 seasons now, almost 4 full seasons of this 5v5 in ANZPL here in Australia and New Zealand. But, it would be silly of us to assume that, we've locked it in. We know the best strats. We know the best things to do. There's nothing more interesting for me than seeing how other regions do it. And JPL certainly provides that.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, look, even with an APAC, different sub-regions do bring out a lot of different strats, and that sort of clash, whenever it does happen between the sub-regions, is absolutely beautiful, because it finally allows to diversify both ends of the competition to a whole new level. The teams that do get to clash internationally, they bring back to the region a whole new level, new set of strats, new set of approaches, and it evolves the general scene just to a whole new level. So yeah, look, having more regions to play out the Premier League, and having seen how JPL plays, whilst yes, to us some of the strats may be a little bit unconventional, but 110%, I would be always down to see how would ANZPL players fare against the JPL players as well.
Yeah, and don't be surprised if you ever did see ANZPL up against JPL. Elfish Guy historically does jump ship and support the Japanese teams. He's a bit like that, so
See, Swen.
what I always see you with whatever. Like, you're a big fan. I don't trust you. Watch it.
Yeah, Karen Tiger definitely was better than Team Efficiency in quite a lot of those series. That's all I'll say. They did. I think they won like 3 tiebreakers against Team Efficiency in a row. So we'll give them that.
It's gonna be a big week next week either way. I've accidentally booked my ticket a week early, or 2 weeks early. So I'll have the pleasure of casting next week from Fortress. I'll suss it out for you, Jordan, and see if anything's changed in the last 12 months since we've been there. But it's going to be a good one. You don't want to miss it. We know the Sentinels are in. They're locked. They're in the grand final. The question is, which of the 2 fairy tale stories are we going to lock in next Friday? Is it finally the Scorpions v the Sentinels in the grand final live at Fortress Melbourne? Or is it JS bringing it home for the Perth Panthers? Based on tonight's results, I think anything is possible. Plus, we have that epic B League Grand Final. So enjoy your weekend. Happy tanking, and we'll see you next Friday.
I've been thinking about you, boy.